I got you.
make
I
it to
got
the
you. I got
part.
you.
I'm going live. Boom. It's done. How
Oh,
are you guys gonna
oh.
open it up? What are you gonna say? How are you gonna make an
Say.
impression on our viewers on our viewership? They're very impressionable.
I want to know how
They're
desperate
little babies.
the first person to ever eat cheese was.
Hmm.
Because this is what cheese is. Old milk that's so old it became solid.
Yeah.
So who
Like-
was like, gotta eat something? And
Well,
then they're like,
first
"Oh, yeah, it's
step,
actually pretty
you
good."
have the balls to drink the milk of another animal. So that's step
Yes.
one. And then step two is you have the balls to do that and then leave it outside for a little bit.
Right.
And then you
Or, like-
make the decision and then you eat it.
Or like, who was the first person like to eat honey? They're like, oh yeah, this is something that's definitely worth getting stung to death for.
Oh, there's this goo. There's this
And I'm
goo and a
sweet
bunch
goo.
of deadly animals around it.
Yeah, I'm willing to fight 1,000,000 bees for this
I
goo.
kind of want to see what that goo tastes like, though. For real, though?
Man, if those bees are
Like,
gonna kill me over it, it gotta be good,
What'd that
right?
goo
Nice
do?
and shiny. Ooh, girl, what that goo do?
No, that's not good. That's not kosher.
Yes, it is. It's fine.
Remember the song Cake by the Ocean? And how that
Yeah,
song
fuck
is
yeah.
about ass and no middle schooler, like every single middle school dance still played it.
Right, about eating ass on the beach.
Yeah, you know.
Listen, I respect it.
Memories.
Memories.
And my favorite was always Moves Like Jagger, which is about eating pussy. That's what that song's about.
Is
like-
it? I have not purposely
Yeah,
listened to
okay,
Moves Like
look,
Jagger in a
Mick
very
Jagger
long
was not
time.
known for his dance moves. He was known
Fair
for
enough.
his big old tongue.
Ew, don't say
I
it like
thought
that.
he
He's
was
got-
a dance
He's
boy. Is
talking
that
about
wrong?
Adam Levine saying he has cunnilingus moves, like a famously big-tongued man like Mick
Cool,
Jagger.
cool.
That's what that song is.
Are you sure? Did you
I
check
did-
any sources about
Yes.
this, Jackson?
I did a play when I was 15, and they had a song, us sing a song that was to the tune of Moves Like Jagger,
Right.
but it was changed to I got the moves like Snidely Whiplash.
Why?
It-
Okay, please
why?
elaborate on this whole situation for me.
Okay, so this was the play. The play was Cowboy Cinderella.
All right.
It was called Cindy Luella. And I played
That was
one of
pretty
the
good.
evil stepsisters. And it was originally just a play. And then the director was like, you know what this should be? A musical that I take popular songs of the 2012 era
Right.
and I make them slightly maybe about cowboys, but not really. And so we sang, I got the moves like Snidely, I got the moves like Snidely, I got the moves like Snidely Whiplash. Because Snidely Whiplash is a
wasn't
villain.
a cowboy.
No.
He's a
he wasn't.
copyrighted Hanna-Barbera character.
Oh, here's why. The reason why is because at the beginning of the play, this has nothing to do with the plot, but they had the ensemble act out Snidely. Oh, because this is all coming back to me. I
Okay.
really blocked it from my memory.
Yeah,
Because during when Cinderella sings "Mean" by Taylor Swift, because
Oh,
her stepmother
wonderful.
is mean to her and won't let her go to the bonanza or whatever the
Okay.
ball is called in Cowboy.
This
So she sings about
cowboy
mean,
language.
and then scenes of mean villains start appearing on the stage, and one of them was Snidely Whiplash, and my sister, who was like 8 at the time, played Snidely Whiplash.
Okay.
She was older. She was a little bit older, but for some reason, Snidely Whiplash was like very prominently featured in this play about Cowboy Cinderella.
All right, that's fine.
You know, as much as I hate
I'm not
Disney
gonna narc on
just
you guys for
churning
copyright
out,
infringement.
no, I will.
didn't want to do it. It's so much copyright infringement.
What's up, Adeline?
As much as I'm tired of Disney just like putting out live action reboots, if they were like, "What's up, fuckers? We got Cinderella, but this time they're all cowboys," I would show up for that. I think I would pay money to see that.
Right.
It doesn't have to be. Cinderella's an age-old tale.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be Disney.
That's fair. Yeah.
Isn't
If you had to
Camilla
take one
Cabello-
classic fairy tale and make it about cowboys, which one would you do?
I would
The
do Jack and the Beanstalk.
Huh. So he was like a little cowboy boy climbing up the
Yeah.
beanstalk.
And he's like wrangling
The cow.
and like the goose that lays
The
golden eggs.
Yeah, he's got a lasso.
But it like lays eggs full of oil.
I would say Tarzan, except all the gorillas are cowboys.
Whoa. Okay.
I didn't know that counted as a classic story.
What Tarzan? It cows. It was like 1900. When did one?
I like Tarzan, but he's raised by cows instead of.
So he's got one foot in both worlds. He's half normal guy and half cowboy.
Have cows.
Yeah. Two worlds, one family.
He wears a fedora. It's like halfway between not having a hat and having a cowboy hat.
Yeah, he's like
Oh,
this
yeah.
posh European boy who gets raised by cowboys.
He's like, howdy,
Maybe this
everybody.
is just a sitcom, actually.
Maybe he speaks in cowboy vernacular, but in an English accent. Maybe that's the
Yeah, but instead
He
of swinging on
translates it.
vines, he swings on a lasso.
Nice.
And
Yeah, he
Howdy,
surfs
y'all.
through the. Just surfing on cows.
yeah.
I'm about to wrangle up a huge batch of cows.
Of crumpets.
If you do
love.
British cowboy, it just comes out Australian.
Yeah, I guess that's what that is.
Oh, you
That's
might
what
have
a British
something
cowboy
there.
is. It's just an
Yeah,
Australian
yes.
person.
Yeah, you know.
They're like, oi, mate, would you like some grub?
Every once in a while, someone will just reinvent Australia on accident.
Sorry, Australia. No hate to Australia. All love.
No.
Also, Cade, you're talking about the Cowboy Rapunzel. I did read that graphic novel, and it is good. That's the end of the thought.
All right.
Cowboy Rapunzel.
She like braids her hair into lassos. Yeah.
That
And
makes sense.
that's
That makes sense.
all that I remember from it. So there we go.
Well, who rescues her? A cowboy, probably.
Herself.
Yeah.
No, she punches Mother Gothel in the face or something and jumps out of the tower.
He brands her in the face.
Jesus Christ. Maybe not that.
Well, I didn't write it.
So, hey, before we get into anything, I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping for anybody who is watching currently, who maybe isn't always here. There's nobody I don't recognize in the chat yet, but, you know, there are people milling around. I just want to say that it's a little bit tricky with this because we are streaming us recording a podcast, that it's not exactly a situation where we can just hang out and chat with the chat once we really get started. So this is your time to do that with us if you'd like. But if you have something pertinent to say about the movie or about the actual conversation we're already having, or like something that might be fun to bring up and spur on the conversation, we'd love to do that. We've always got an eye on the chat while we're recording, but it's just not in a place where we can be like, oh, hey, let's give shout outs to everybody and just be like, hi, you know, like we can't really do that. But I want to start saying that at the beginning of these streams. I want to have more.
That we're not actually streamers. We're just.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I just was saying that I want to have like some sort of like format that we're working within so that people like kind of know what's up. And I'd love for like the people at home to actually like contribute to the conversation about the movie as much as they can, because I think
Well, for me, it's just like telling them that like if you say something in the chat, we're not ignoring you. We're just recording a podcast, so we can't.
Yeah. And on top of that, I mere moments ago started or created an account for No Nerds Allowed on TikTok. Booyah. So
Oh, hey, what's up, teens?
yeah, if you want to check out just at No Nerds Allowed on TikTok, there are no videos on it currently. I've got a couple of them made that are going to be published in the near future. So just check that out. They're just
Renegade.
Yeah, we're gonna do the Renegade.
That trend from maybe a year ago.
No, but they're just podcasts podcast highlights, the same podcast highlights that are going to go up on Twitter. And other than that, but yeah, it'll be cool. You can lip sync our funny bits. You can
do that cool thing where you make new content out of adding nothing to somebody else's content.
Shush, it would be good for us if they did that.
It would be good. Please do that.
Or maybe if you like choreograph a dance to one of our bits.
Do the renegade to our funny goofs.
I'm about to upload a video to TikTok where I'm talking about how good I am at peeing. And if you want to take that sound clip and do a little dance about it, by all means, I would encourage you to
please,
do that.
for the love of God, do not record yourself peeing and put it on TikTok. For the love of Christ, do not do that.
That's not what I said to do. Don't put that.
Yeah, I know, but we were all thinking it, and I just need it to be known that it's not allowed. It's against the rules.
Okay.
Terms and services.
Yeah, your No Nerds Allowed membership will be revoked.
Yeah, that's all.
You will be a nerd, and you will not be allowed.
Yeah.
I'm not joking.
If you look at the TikTok terms of service, if you look like really closely, it's like you realize that the only like legal punishment they can administer to you for breaking the rules is just that you will be a nerd. Like in the eyes of the law.
It's a pretty good system, like honestly. It keeps
like,
straight TikTok from doing a lot of bad stuff.
When you like make a video, the only thing people are allowed to comment is nerd.
It just autocorrects immediately. Yeah. It's like having forbidden words in your comment section. It's like the opposite of that. Every single word is nerd.
Or have you seen like in Black Mirror, if someone does something really illegal, they'll like put a filter on them so everyone who has like robot eyes, you can't see them and you can't hear them. It's just like nerd. It'll be like a big bar that says nerd over their body.
That sounds sick. Yeah. Should I watch Black Mirror?
Yeah, it's so good.
I just can't get over the first episode. I really don't want to watch that one.
Just don't watch that one.
That's fair.
Here's a story. Here's a tale. My teacher in high school, Mr. Woodard, was like,
hell yeah,
this Mr. is Woodard. Before like Black Mirror like got bought by Netflix or Netflix started making new episodes. So like show. Yeah, just the like 2 seasons. So like it wasn't like huge deal. He was like, you guys should watch Black Mirror because it's crazy, so good, psychologically, blah 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 blah. And he was like, the second episode is so good, you should watch it. And so I was like 17. I logged on, and I'm also like a 17-year-old Christian, mind you. So like I don't really dabble in lots of things out of the worldly things. So I was like, I'll check this out because my public school teacher recommended it to me. And I turn on episode number 1. And what's the theme of episode number 1? Well, I'll tell you, kids. It's the prime minister fucking a pig in front of the whole nation.
Hell yeah.
And I haven't watched it since. I could tell you beat for beat what happens in that episode, but I haven't watched it for like 6 years.
First time I was hearing about that, it happened in a conversation where we were talking about a lot of different stuff, and it got jumbled up in my head. And for some reason, I thought that the prime minister being being blackmailed into fucking a pig on TV was something that happened in the first episode of House of Cards.
Oh my god!
So when I started watching House of Cards, I was like, well, what the fuck? Where was the pig?
Fucking the pig.
What happened to that? And for so long, I was just like, that guy was just fucking with me. That doesn't happen at all. Why'd he say that?
It was just a prank. It was prank.
Eventually, I put the pieces together that I misunderstood.
The episode is good though. Like
I've heard.
It's horrible. It's horrifying. But there are other episodes of that show that I feel like are more horrifying, less like ew, and more like I can't believe that this is the world.
Yeah.
And this is
Cole
very
just
much
brought up something in the chat, which I think we should all address.
Yeah, let's take a look at Cole Reese's comment.
Which episode was it? Which episode, Cole?
Was it the pig one?
Hopefully not the first one.
The pig one, hopefully. I don't think that's appropriate.
Wait, do they show the deed, the dirty deed? Like,
okay,
what do they?
Adeline, you can't show a person's erect penis entering a pig on television.
But I mean, I'm just wondering how they frame it, you know, like. Does he like
It's
go into a room and like that he's doing it, or like what? Like I don't know.
I
How do
mean-
you deliver that to the American audience? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, it was for the British audience.
Yeah.
They didn't really care about the Americans, but they do show his face while it's happening.
The thing about the
see,
BBC is that they got no rules over there.
But here's the thing: is that all the other episodes are not like that. So
No,
you
I
should
watched the
watch-
one. My friend showed me the one where it's like the two lesbian ladies in the computer before they die, and that one's very good.
Yeah, that
But why
one's
did
good.
why did they start with the pig fucker one? Why? Let's introduce
that
our show.
really- That really boggles my mind that they were like, "Hey, we have this idea. It's called Black Mirror," except they're British. So like, it's called Black Mirror, and it's about how
Got 'em.
technology impacts our lives. And they're like, "Wow, that's awesome. We should definitely do that." Oh, like technologically based anthology, Twilight Zone, and they're like, yeah. So our first episode is about the Prime Minister fucking a pig.
Are we
And then
cool?
they-
Are you good? Is that cool? Can we do that? Hello? Are
And
you
they're
still
like-
here?
And
Let's make
in
more.
the BBC, they're freaks over there. And they're like,
They-
yeah, that's the pilot for certain.
Yeah, let's show this to as many people as we can. That's the goal.
It's just so crazy
Okay.
to me that, like, for years and decades and almost a century, there have been so many rules about what you can and can't do on TV. And then you watch, like, an episode of Monty Python's Flying Circus, and there's, like, a dude with his dick out, like, fully. And you're like, what? Like, this is from the 70s. Like, how did you do that? You couldn't do that on TV. Turns out they're just freaks over there. They've always
They
been
just
freaks.
don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They've got Harry Potter and Doctor Who, and then everything else they just don't give a shit about. Everything else is just penises.
Like that one, it is distressing. But I think the like next episode, which is I think it's Be Right Back. I might be wrong. Oh wait, no. The one that's called Be Right Back, it's got Donald Gleason in it, is literally the most emotionally harrowing thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
What's the one that's got what's his name? The guy from Get Out. Daniel Kaluuya.
That's 15 Million Merits, which is also just horrifying. Horrifying. It's real good though.
So hey, how do we feel? How do we let's just check in how we
Bad.
feel about starting the podcast?
Oh, about the podcast, good. In general, bad.
I'll just say it
Fair,
again because
same.
we're still getting people coming in. In a few moments, we're gonna start the recording of the actual podcast, of which we will publish on podcast platforms later. And if you're in the chat, we'd love to hear from you. But just a heads up, we can't do the "Hey, how's it going?" shout out for shout out, that kind of thing, because we're doing a podcast to be published. But if you have something interesting and like pertinent to the discussion that we might be able to point out and piggyback on to do a podcast about, that's totally sick, and we love that. But just a heads up, it can't be quite as cash once we start. But before we do that, I just want to shout out to Cole Reese and Coopersville, who are just hanging out here.
Also, love that social media based episode of Black Mirror. Crazy that they showed it in a school though.
That they did that.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna pull up audition.
Jackson, do you want to talk about your trauma with where the red fern grows, or are you good?
Why would I want to?
Because it's about
What?
schools doing crazy shit to their kids.
No, kids read Where the Red Fern Grows all the time. It's just a weird book.
I did not, Jackson.
Where the red fern grows. That's hard to say.
Yeah.
Bad
Just all of the
You're
R's are
right.
in different places.
Speaking of
And that's
bad-
why it's a bad book.
Speaking of bad titles,
No.
you know what drives me absolutely insane? There's a
Tell us.
new movie on Netflix that's directed by George Clooney called Midnight Sky, and it's not very good, and I don't recommend it. But it's like this like plaintive, quiet sci-fi movie that's bad. But it's based on a novel called Good Morning Midnight, and that title is so sick. Why would you ever change it to The Midnight Sky? Like, what
Yeah. Pretty generic.
What a generic, unmemorable, completely anonymous title. And like Good Morning Midnight slaps so hard. It just I'm so mad about it.
Good Morning Midnight feels like an Owl City song to me. And that feels good
Yeah.
too. I would never hate on Owl City.
That's why
Don't
it's good.
ever think I would hate on Owl City.
Don't put those goddamn words in my mouth.
Okay, give me just one moment while I make sure my shit's together.
Give me just one moment before I make sure my shit's together.
How does the audio sound, people in the chat, by the way? I always
I'm
have to
only
ask.
gonna be singing.
I just want to make sure that I'm
I
not.
ordered.
Nobody's super loud.
I ordered a little streaming mic from Razer for like $50, so theoretically it'll be better than this $30 microphone that I'm working with, like at least. So look forward to that if it ever gets delivered, you know.
You want to hear something really embarrassing that happened to me is I bought Christmas presents for my sister like in November. I was so ahead of the game. I'm never ahead of the game. And I ordered them from this one company and they emailed me back like a week later and they were like, this address isn't a thing. We can't put it into our computers. And I was like, yes, it is. It's right. And they kept sending me, they're like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. I'm positive. And then eventually they were like, it's really not going to work. And I was like, fine, just send it to my work address, whatever. And then I checked it again and I totally misspelled my street. Nice. And so all of my packages for like the past couple of weeks have been incorrect. So
God damn it.
I was like,
so
wow.
I'm an Amazon delivery driver. That's my day job. And there's a system where you can like leave little special instructions for the driver. So every once in a while when you like pull up an order that you're dropping off at somebody's door, it'll say like, oh, bring it around to the back door, or like there's a dog here but he's fine, whatever it is.
But it's cool.
But like every once in a blue moon you get like the most passive aggressive shit in there that is definitely from like 9 or 10 deliveries ago, where it's like, there's this one house I deliver to semi-regularly where every time I load it up and the little comment is just like, you've delivered here before, I don't know what the problem is. And you're like, okay. It's just so funny because it's
sorry,
because they don't change it. They don't go back and change it later. So there's some houses that are just permanently like, why are you guys such shitheads?
Why are you being a dumbass?
And then you just deliver their package and you move on. Like, how do you react? How can you respond to that? Well, you can't.
Yeah. Except maybe spit on their package, I guess.
Yeah.
Get the COVID on it.
Oh, I forgot about COVID for a second. Don't do that, actually. In a pre-COVID world, that would have been fine.
I walked into a store a couple days ago, and they had a bunch of salt lamps set up, and I was like, man, if it wasn't COVID right now, I'd be licking those salt lamps.
Were you doing that before?
The only thing keeping you from licking salt lamps.
Listen. I'm not gonna say I didn't at least put my tongue on each salt lamp before. I will not confirm that.
Okay, fine. Are we ready to start?
You're telling me you've never looked at a salt lamp and you're like, I want to lick that thing.
I've never actually licked it.
Okay, first of all, there's a difference between a private salt lamp and a public salt lamp, okay?
You just make sure you lick the side that's not showing.
The dusty
if
side?
I were to lick a salt lamp, that's what I would do.
Okay.
Theoretically.
A few years ago, I bought my dad a pyramidal-shaped salt lamp, and I made each of his kids, he has 4 kids, I had each of us lick one side of the salt lamp. Okay. I felt like it was a good
How often are salt lamps actual salt?
They're salt.
Okay, just checking.
I did have about that. Like, pretty sure.
I did have a chunk of salt from the salt flats in Utah for a while when I was growing up, because my dad went and
did you eat
brought some home. And I never ate it, but it was just like a rock that I kept in my room, and I'd lick it every once in a while. Be like, yeah, tastes like salt.
Yep. Salt.
Yep.
That
Oh,
What
sure
is
is
salt
salt.
like that?
I was
I
like
don't-
that. I was like that guy in
It's
Last
surely
Jedi.
salt.
Remember that guy
Or
in
you
Last
were
Jedi?
Mad Max. Like he's like, oh, it's red salt.
Yeah.
Salt
Just-
flats.
That's my favorite part of Last Jedi, where just that anonymous guy in the trenches just like picks up some salt off the ground, puts it in his mouth, spits it out, and goes, salt.
My God, it's salt.
Yeah,
It's
that's just one of the
great.
reasons why that's the best movie ever made.
Yeah, movie rips. Okay, I'm gonna start my recording so we can start talking about Disney Pixar stuff.
Okay. I'm gonna start my recording and close my door and be a professional.
Okay.
Oh, fashion now. Oh wait, should I not start recording yet?
Yeah, let's wait till Adeline gets back.
I just wanted to record myself singing the word professional, but I guess that's just lost to the universe now.
Hi, top hat, use uncle.
Adobe wants me to rate them, but there's no go fuck yourself button.
Ayo.
Am I saying use uncle right?
I think the sunkle is silent.
Silent.
Oh, chat. I know it's too late, but here's the thing: is that Adeline, have you seen We Could Be Heroes yet?
No, I have not.
It's good.
Okay, Jackson and I have both seen the movie, and we have drastically differing opinions.
How do you
on
not
it.
like it? It's good.
I don't think it's a good movie, and
Whatever.
Jackson thinks it's the best Robert Rodriguez movie, and I
Okay,
just
look.
cannot agree.
We both got to revisit Spy Kids. And
Yeah.
maybe we'll come back maybe in our memory. Last time I saw Spy Kids was a few years ago. Is the same true
Spy
for you?
Kids was a highly rewatched film for me.
Okay.
I can't really remember. It's been at least in the past 2 years I've watched Spy
Okay.
Kids.
I'll come back. I'll come back to Spy Kids, come back to Shark Boy and Lava Girl, and maybe I'll reassess, but based on my memory of them, I liked We Could Be Heroes a lot better than the version of them that exists in my mind palace.
A lot of nostalgia for Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I love that movie as a kid. I will be the first to say it sucks ass. It is not a good film.
Have you watched it recently?
I semi-recently, a few years ago, like I've definitely watched it as an adult, and I was like, wow, this just blows chunks. Like there's just no... God, the acting from these children is just shit. And it's one of those like films that's like about children's imagination,
Right,
but
right.
like in the worst way possible, you know?
Because yeah, that's the thing about Shark Boy and Lava Girl, right? Is that it takes place inside that kid's brain, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it
but
sucks.
also-
But why? What's up
pretty
with
sure
We
it's
Can Be
like-
Heroes, where they're just like heroes in a city now?
Yeah, it's a straight up retcon because I'm pretty sure that he imagined it, but like it's a real planet that they're from.
Okay, I guess.
At the
Like, I think
end, the
that's
Shark
what
Boy and Lava Girl
happened.
save his parents from the tornado, remember? It becomes
Yeah.
real.
Oh yeah.
An Electro dude attacks his real mean
George
teacher.
George
Lopez.
Lopez, yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Electro.
he fucking hates his teacher so much, and George Lopez doesn't do a thing to him. Like, he just hates that guy for
Just a
no reason.
teacher.
He's the man, Adeline. He's authority.
But this kid just hates this guy for no reason,
He's the
so much so
bourgeoisie trying
that
to
he is
teach
the
him lessons
villain
and
of
shit.
his waking daydreams.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
but I we can talk about this later. Let's talk about Soul.
Okay.
I
I'm
don't
gonna start
know.
recording in 3, 2, 1, now. Oh, wait.
Oh, Jackson.
Sorry. I always forget that I have to title the file. Okay.
Title the file.
Try again. Okay,
it
3,
funny.
2, 1, now. Okay. Mr.
Stopheles.
The
Big.
Magical.
railway.
Wait, what was the first thing you said, Adeline?
No, Keisha went before me. Keisha
Right.
said the railway cat's name.
So wait,
Christopoulos.
no.
Mr. Mistopheles is the magic cat.
So
He's
wait,
the
so the
magic cat?
sentence so far is Mr. Mistopheles, the magical railway, yes?
Yes.
Okay, I guess cat. He's not, but I guess cat.
Sorry, I haven't seen cats. I'm sorry that I'm not caught up on the cat's lore,
Adeline,
alright?
how can
I'm
you
sorry.
not know that Skimbleshanks is the railway cat?
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that Flingleflorp is the sunrise cat.
Can I tell
Yeah,
you the
well-
God's honest truth right now? Scout's honor, like hand to God, cross my heart and hope to die. Skimbleshanks the Railway Cat song fucking slaps so hard. I listen to
I
it
agree.
pretty often. It rules.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
it's
Hey, the
it's
reason that
really
Cats
great.
has been on for 10 billion years is because people actually like it.
Yeah.
Tom Hooper.
Thomas Hooper.
Thomas.
Digital for technology.
Thomas Hoops.
Ugh, glory.
So, it's interesting. I've decided that on the podcast, I'm going to just have the theme song come in, swing in right at the top, and then we can just get into it. We don't have to play this weird game where we try to come up with a hook and transition smoothly into some bullshit. No more of that. Now we can just freewheel it, which is fine.
Jackson's fucking tired of it.
Well, yeah, because it just means more work that I have to do. But that does mean that I'm not 100% sure how to approach the introductions of the podcast anymore. What are your guys' thoughts?
Truth is
Well,
Yeah, just tell the fucking truth,
Just tell
man.
the fucking
Fuck,
truth,
you're
yeah,
so
man.
right, Kezia. Just let the truth speak for itself.
just let
God,
the truth
yeah.
speak.
I mean,
Um,
I know a lot of podcasts have like voiceover intros that they do of like, hey, this is what the podcast is. Join us, won't you? You
Maybe,
know, and then
maybe.
they get into it. That they just like play all the time.
Well, for now, let's say I'm Jackson McMurray, you're Adeline McMurray, and you're Kezia Rhodes, and this is No Nerds Allowed, a podcast about movies and not much else.
And we
But-
pretend it's about other
Right.
things, but it's usually not.
But yeah, I guess for now that'll do, Pig, and I guess we'll just get into it, right? Maybe it's a bad idea. Maybe we needed the structure.
Yeah, maybe you're breaking up an
I
old
realize
familiar
it.
pattern.
Maybe I'm.
This is a brand new year, and we're allowed to experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I say let's go for it.
All right.
Gonna miss Jackson singing the exact same Star Wars theme every time we do a Star
No,
Wars episode.
there are always different
Adeline, That's
ones.
how they open Star Wars. So.
You know what?
True.
That's fair. You got a
John
point.
Williams doing
Remember
same
on
old
the
thing?
Revenge of the Sith one where I sang the song from the chamber where they're watching the opera? It's a classic.
That's
It's
right.
an all-timer podcast
That
moment.
weird ass opera.
Um.
We can't talk about Star Wars.
So hey, today
Hey,
on the podcast, a very
Welcome.
special episode in which we discuss Disney Pixar's Soul, the hottest new trend. Kids on TikTok are all over it. They're doing dances. They love Soul. And now there's us on a podcast talking about Soul. I don't think that's actually true. Adeline, you're on
the only
TikTok the most.
the only TikTok trend for Soul is to have the artists on TikTok draw themselves as a soul. I've seen a few of those. They're
Okay,
cute.
okay.
Oh,
So
that's
not
cool.
a big footprint for Soul on TikTok.
Not yet.
What's
And
okay?
the-
So Adeline,
To be fair, yes.
there's this is your responsibility. Okay, there's a
Mhm.
new challenge on TikTok called the hashtag the Soul Challenge. What is it?
So you fall down a manhole cover
And die.
and die, but it's like whoever can dab the most on the way down, that's the
Okay.
winner of the challenge.
You gotta take this seriously, Adeline, because kids haven't been dabbing in years. We're so
Yeah,
far
I know,
past
man.
dabbing. I need you to take this seriously.
That was my irreverent take.
cyclical.
I think okay, so you don't want kids going outside because it's COVID.
Mhm.
There was the last like trend that I saw on TikTok. To be fair, I am not on straight TikTok. I'm on like cosplay and all TikTok, so I don't know what the cool kids are doing. But the last trend that I saw was like doing eyeliner things for an
Okay.
eyeliner brand. I think that was just an advertisement disguised as a challenge, though, maybe.
Okay.
So I would say I think there's been a lot of the controversies. There's been a lot of like makeup looks that are like close to cosplay, but they're not cosplay. So I think it'd be like soul eyeshadow, where it's like the blue and the light blue and the yellow. I think that's what it would be. To do
Okay.
like a makeup look inspired by soul.
By Soul,
Listen, this is
alright.
what I see on TikTok.
All right. Okay. Fair enough.
I think my challenge would be what's the fastest you can get into an existential dread spin?
Yeah.
So you're one of those little monsters on the ground going, "Meh, meh, 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 meh," stress. That'll be my challenge. Can you do
Okay,
it in a
so
minute or
just
15 seconds?
right, yeah. If you can fit it, you start from 0 and you whip yourself up into an existential tailspin before the video is over. And if you do that, you
Yeah.
succeed.
Yeah. Or just, see where you get. Maybe you don't get all the way there, but you get close.
So Soul is an
You're not gonna come up with a trend, Jackson. You're just gonna offload that onto us.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm the producer. I just told you guys to do it, and you did a good job. So I don't know. I don't see why I have to.
Yeah, we're the creatives. Lol.
So Soul was one of 2 movies that came out on Christmas Day on streaming services for free. I mean, for free asterisk, because you have to be subscribed to it.
Yeah.
And like between this movie and Wonder Woman 1984, it was so funny on Twitter because everybody and their brother sat down in the afternoon on Christmas and watched Wonder Woman, and unilaterally everybody was like, "What the fuck? This blows. Fuck this movie." Like,
yeah.
I saw so many Wonder Woman 1984 blows dick tweets in that afternoon. It was insane.
On Christmas Day, a wonderful Christmas present.
Yeah, exactly. And then on December 26th, that morning, I saw, yo, Soul actually kind of rips like a million times. Like every single person sat down and was like, I think I'm going to take a bite out of Wonder Woman first, and then tweeted about how it blew. And the next morning was like, Soul seems pretty good, and watched Soul, and then tweeted about how it was good. Like on that exact same schedule. I just thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, because they picked the worst one. I don't know why Wonder Woman blew chunks, but it blew chunks, and so Soul was definitely the correct choice.
And
during this podcast is to not cry. Because
not cry on
anytime
the podcast.
I'm trying to talk about this movie, I start crying.
All right.
Because I think it's that good.
Keep an eye out.
It's very good. It's definitely I think the chillest Pixar movie. Cause like it's kind of slow. We kind of do a bunch of things. There's not a lot of like action. There's not really like a villain. We're not really fighting anything. There is like a time crunch, but it's kind of a slow time crunch because we're told it's the end of this day, but this day is the movie, of course. So it takes a while to like, it doesn't feel like an impending time crunch. I don't know. I would say it's a very slow film.
Yeah, and sorry, excuse me. I was thinking about it because my girlfriend Anna works at a daycare, and she was talking about how they showed this movie for all the kids one day when they were like sitting down and watching a movie because it's available for free and it's a kids movie, so they were like, sure. But I couldn't imagine like showing this movie to a bunch of like first and second graders because like this movie's not really for kids. Like, not that it's like inappropriate or like that they shouldn't be watching it, but it's just like I don't know what a kid would get out of this movie, you know?
Yeah, it's like I don't like to be like, oh, kids wouldn't get it, but like I don't think
they wouldn't
kids would get it.
No.
Yeah,
because it's very explicitly. It's kind of like I honestly want to compare it to Kiki's Delivery Service, where the moral of the story is like definitely like existential and about like the hardships that come with like living life, because Kiki's Delivery Service is basically about burnout and not being able to do the things that you used to be able to love for no reason and trying to like get back into it.
Right.
And so like kids don't understand that part of Kiki's Delivery Service. They just see the cute witch girl and the cat and they're like, oh, this is nice. But the Soul doesn't really have that kind of factor. Like we have a funny cat, but not funny enough to dispose of all the external dread, you know?
Right, yeah. And like, because Anna's always talking about how like the only movies we can show kids at work have to be rated G, and sometimes they can kind of fudge it with like a PG movie every once in a while, but like she's always looking for G-rated movies to show the kids. And I'm always like, my bit is I'm always like, Citizen Kane, Anna, you gotta show your kids Citizen Kane rated G. You gotta make sure they understand. You gotta show these kids Citizen Kane. But like, that's a bit, but showing the kids Soul to me seems like showing them Citizen Kane. Like
they would get the same amount of understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like it's just not that it's inappropriate. It's just like you wouldn't like it, you know?
You haven't lived long enough to understand what's happening,
Yeah.
and it's not your fault, and it's not the movie's fault.
I think this movie is it's like soul sisters with Inside Out.
Right.
Like
Oh,
they have a lot of
definitely.
the same tone and theme, but at least Inside Out is like colorful. And not that
Right.
this movie is not colorful,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's like Bing Bong and Tower of Boyfriends and
Right.
pizza.
Well, because like I feel like Inside Out more than any other Pixar movie is more explicitly for kids. It's like
yeah.
it's like aimed right at kids to be like, we're teaching you a specific lesson about the world and like how you feel and like how to engage with your emotions, and it's like this is a lesson we want to impart upon children. And this movie is just like, no, kids, this one's for grown-ups. Like it's because it's like ideologically playing in some of the same spaces and it's the same director, and but it just feels so like diametrically opposite, where it's just like there's probably not anything that a kid would like in this movie
Yeah,
besides
definitely not
like
the huge, terrifying lost soul monsters.
right.
Definitely not those things,
And it's just
which are
like
just wow.
What That's kind of how Frozen and Frozen 2 felt to me, though. Like, obviously, Frozen is more geared towards like children, but Frozen 2, even though it is still like this is a family movie for sure, like it does feel like there are more adult themes than in the
Mhm.
first one. And the like creators took that into account, that the kids who started, they were super young when they watched Frozen, like they're 6 years older now. And it feels like the kids who were kids when Inside Out, like the 7 to 10-year-olds that like Inside Out is really for, if like they're 15, 16, 17 now.
right.
And this movie is perfect for them.
Yeah.
The
You
And I
progression
guys
of
love
time is
that.
bonkers because people
you
always say that about like Toy Story 3, and I was a little bit because like the people who grew up with Toy Story and Toy Story 2 were then in college when Toy Story 3 came out, and I was a little bit younger than that. I was probably in high school. But it's just like back then I was like, "Oh, I get it." But like now the progression of time is crazy. What do you mean children grow up? What the fuck?
right, yeah. And I also think like so this movie, the biggest thing that I think about a lot whenever I'm watching one of these new Disney movies, whether it's a Pixar or a Disney proper or even like a DreamWorks or anything like that, like these movies where it's like these top of the line, like highest tier animation studios pushing out like ultra expensive animated movies, like we're hitting a point where people look gross in these movies because their skin is too real and their heads are shaped weird because they're trying to be a little bit cartoony, but their skin still looks like real ass life like human skin on top of them, you know? And the whole world around them looks exactly like live action video, except for these weird cartoon people running around. And it's obviously it's not unwatchable, but every single one of these movies that goes by, I get more and more weirded out by the people in them, you know?
I think, Jackson, I think this is just a you problem. And I don't mean to dismiss it completely. But like, cause I
You
really like the aesthetic that Pixar has going on with its people. Like looking at Inside Out, like the mom and dad and Riley and Inside Out, I think look great. I love Coco is like my one of my favorite movies ever. I think everybody looks great in that. And you were super freaked out by Mama Grandma Coco in that. You did
yeah,
not like the way she looked. And like everybody else on the planet thought that she was adorable and looked great and you were freaked out. So I think this is just your own hangups with the Uncanny Valley because I don't know. I didn't experience that at all during Soul. I think the main character's face is a little bit weird, but everybody else's face was like immediately recognizable as like obviously a little bit exaggerated, but like kind of like ugly in like a human way. Like the guy who works at the barber shop and he's got that like super like small chin. I was like, "Oh, I know a guy that like looks exactly like that." You know, like It's definitely exaggerated, but I don't know. I don't think it's at the point where it's like really uncanny valley. I think we've gone over the valley.
You don't think that the kids in that band class at the beginning look like nightmares at all?
No, I think they look
I
fine.
have not I have no qualms or problems with the
Okay.
character design. I
But
really like it.
what I was trying to say was that the like this movie seems to be like more than any of the other Pixar movies previously, because it's only becoming more exaggerated. I think the better we get at this thing, the more uncomfortable it is to see these like mega realistic pores and bricks and stuff next to like cartoonish features. Like this movie seems to be like presenting like the height of the problem while also presenting what is the solution to it, which is to just do something else. Just do something that is abstract and does not require anything to have pores or microscopic hairs that you have to look
Which
at.
has always been the Pixar formula, which has been we don't know how to animate people, so let's animate toys and then we'll figure it out later.
Right. But now it's like the reverse. It's like we animate the people too good.
Yeah.
So now maybe we should try something else until we can get that figured out instead.
I think this movie aesthetically, I remember what was that stupid animated like amusement park movie that came out? I think it was called Amusement Park or Wonder Park or
Wonder
whatever.
Park, yeah.
Yeah, it's something
Yeah,
like that.
that movie did not do well. And the way that I described it is it looks like a student's short film in that it looked underdeveloped and just there for like aesthetic. Like it just looked like someone who had put like the barest amount of time into something on like a time crunch for a student film.
Well, that
Well, I
movie
think
literally
that
didn't have a director is the problem
yeah,
with
yeah,
it.
yeah. So yeah. So yeah, that's what was happening. But with Soul, I think it looks like a short film in the best possible way, in that they are making aesthetic choices that Pixar has made in their short films before that have been like a little bit too out there to like put in a full film. Like the way that all the Jerrys look and the color scheme of the Great Before and like all that stuff is like super Pixar animated short, like taking these big risks like aesthetically. And I think it really pays off because it's so cool to look at.
Like the lighting, I can't tell you how many times watching this movie I went, I can't believe this is animated. Like I can't
Yeah.
believe that light is animated.
Right.
Like it
Right.
looks it's like it's just warm and real and like you could like reach out and feel it. I think that's dope. I don't have any
that's
problem
the
with
thing
it.
is like if you're like I can't believe this is animated, then like why is it animated? You know?
I don't know. I think why not? I think that's really beautiful. Like I don't think there's any problem with the lighting becoming better in
Jackson, are you
animation.
gonna look me in the eye and tell me when you were watching Toy Story 4 and it was raining and it looked like it was fucking actually raining, you weren't just sitting there going, "What the fuck?" the whole time because it's
Well,
just so
but
fucking
that's the
cool.
thing is that that is portraying something you couldn't do in live action, right? But with Soul, like obviously the animated portions of it that are like in the Great Before and the Beyond and whatever and the stuff with the cat, like sure. But I don't think it needs to be that hyper realistic. I think not only is it a matter of consolidating your energy and like putting more effort into other areas of the movie, but it's also just a matter of like you're tempting fate. You're saying like we're going to make this look so much more real over and over and over again until it is I guess just indistinguishable from reality completely and the people still have big weird cheeks and noses and
Doesn't look exactly like reality because they're making those aesthetic and character design choices. You're literally
but they're not being
you're
conscientious
destroying your
about
own point.
no because the skin and the pores and the hair and the clothes like look so real on top of something that is so fundamentally not. It's weird. You can't tell me it's not weird, Adeline.
It's not weird because nobody else thinks it looks bad except for you. I would say I do think that there is a point to be made about like what is the end all be all for making animation super realistic. Because if you can make it look like real life, then why are we animating it? And I think that's a fair argument. Because I think we kind of get into I'm gonna talk about video games for once in our podcast. Looking at like the Zelda games, like Twilight Princess had a lot of issues, but one of the things was it was trying to make things on the Wii look as realistic as they did on all the other major consoles. So Twilight Princess was supposed to look like this hyper realistic, or not hyper realistic, but definitely more gritty and more realistic than all the other Zelda games were, because they're trying to compete with like Xbox and PlayStation and stuff like that. Versus like Wind Waker and like even Breath of the Wild that are like so stylized. And I would say that Breath of the Wild is definitely realistic, but it's so stylized in its coloring and its animation. The point of video games is not to have, you're giving the player a very specific experience, and that experience shouldn't just be reality, because then why the fuck are you playing a video game if you're just experiencing reality, you
Right.
know? So it's like the end all be all for animation shouldn't just be like it looks exactly like real life, because then why the fuck are you animating it that way?
Right.
But I would argue that that's not what Soul is doing. It's not let's make this look exactly like real life. It was let's make this look like real life to give you, because we're telling a story about real life. We're trying to tell you a story about morals and like life and death and like what it means to truly live and like all these things. So like of course they want life to look like the life that you live, because if it didn't, I feel like it would kind of lose a little bit of something. If real life didn't look like real life, then I think it wouldn't be as meaningful, and it wouldn't be as much as like a love note to living as it is, you know?
I 100% agree. I feel like it's not always necessary and shouldn't always happen. Like Pixar just released Onward, and nothing about that feels like, oh yeah, that's sunlight that I see in my world and whatever. But I do think that like this specific story that they're telling, the lighting has so much to do with what they're trying to say. And so like the light from in where 22 is like the great before, there's nothing that feels like that for her. And so when she doesn't like Earth at all, or they, because they don't have a gender. Whoa. When like 22 goes to Earth, like feeling warmth and feeling like experiencing taste, like all of those things
Right.
are really important to her journey, their journey, whatever. Gender's weird. And so like you can't give an audience taste or smell or whatever else she's experiencing, but like we know what sunlight feels like, and that I think is really important for this. I think that that's why it's necessary. It's not always necessary, but to this specific story, I think it's really awesome and beautiful that they have this storytelling device now.
Yeah.
If we want, yeah. So shut up, Jackson.
I'm just thinking. I don't know.
I was just thinking about, I think 22 is actually a really good way to talk about like gender expression with kids though, because like
Right.
technically they're nothing. Technically they're they, but she basically explicitly tells you that she identifies as a woman. She's like, I
Right.
purposely choose to sound like a woman. She says because she thinks it's annoying, but like still, she explicitly chooses like, hey, I'm gonna identify as a woman.
Right. I thought they gave the little kids gendered pronouns, don't they? Like
The little souls.
I noticed that they didn't with the Jerrys pointedly, and they all have sort of like androgynous voices in one way or another. But I think they give I think they say like her and she when they're talking about 22, unless
I think they do, yeah.
Or maybe
but I don't think it matters.
Well, yeah,
it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm just saying.
But
yeah.
I like, but yeah, anyway, but just like the broader point I was trying to make is that like the solution to this problem is just like leaning further into things that aren't trying to emulate real life. Like make something new, make something different instead of being like, look, this brick looks like a real fucking brick, you know? And I just feel like the novelty of check it out, this brick looks like a real brick is wearing off on me, you know? Like when you saw, what was the Pixar short film where the little bird was on the like sandpipers?
Yeah,
I think it was just called Piper. Yeah.
Right. That one was like the first time I saw something in animation where I was like, holy shit, that looks like real life. And that felt insane the first time I saw it. And then like again with sort of like Toy Story 4 was the first time I was feeling it in like, you know, like a feature length movie. And then like Soul is kind of the second time where you're looking at New York and you're like, wow, that all looks so real. But it's like from now on, I don't think I'm going to be impressed by it anymore, you know? And I'm so much more impressed in this movie by the afterlife or the before life or whatever, where they're like creating these these textures and like these broad ideas about what things could look like, and like rendering them in a way that is so insanely specific and so micro tactile, that I think is so much more interesting than check out this building. It really looks like a picture, And I also think.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Keisha.
I think that I don't want it to be used as a gimmick, but I think that if it is in a toolbox of an animator's options, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like if they're gonna keep going down this route of like only making things look hyper realistic, then like that's not interesting to me. But I do think that when it's applied well, then I think it's totally worth it.
I would argue that at least I don't think Pixar is going down a path of just making hyper realistic animation, because like I don't think that's what Onward was at all. Onward was definitely very cartoony aesthetically, even though they were definitely trying to like make you feel nostalgia about like the 80s and like hometown vibes and stuff like that. Like it was still adjacent to reality, but it wasn't hyper realistic at all. It was very cartoony and stylized, and that kind of helped get their message across because it
But
was.
like, think about the environments, Adeline. Whenever they're like on a mountain or whatever, like all the wood and the decorations in the buildings are so like finely realized. It's the same.
I think
It's
that
the
helps
same.
make the world feel more real, also.
But that's what I'm describing. Is exactly that. Like everything having to look real, which I don't think it should. It shouldn't look real. It should look like a cartoon.
Well, like,
I don't know. I think that we're getting in like to pedantic territory where I don't like I don't think they're trying to trick anyone. They're just trying to create the vision that is closest to what they feel like represents the movie best. And I think that being somewhat grounded in like Onward, it's very hyper crazy. The like characters and ogres and elves and whatever, like that's not real, but there's a very real family element that should be grounded somewhere. And I think that's okay to be like, this is a hallway and this is kind of what a hallway looks like. I don't think it was abused in their application.
yeah, well,
Right.
it's like, I always remember in Onward, the part where I was like, oh, that looks super real, is the part where he's like writing stuff in his notebook, and like the
Right.
ink on the pen looks exactly like a pen in real life, and then it's like kind of running out of ink and like leaves impressions in the paper. And that spoke to me tactically, because I draw and I write and I do
Tactically.
stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like a very it invoked a texture that I was very familiar with, so I think it did help ground the story. It's like I agree with Keisha. I think it's just a tool in the toolbox. Like, would you rather just have a brown table and tell people that it's made of wood, or have a table that's so clearly made out of wood that people can be like, oh, dude, that's exactly like my table at home. I know exactly what that table feels like just from looking at it, and I immediately know it's a wooden table, you know?
By the way, it's the best line reading in cinema history? Remember in John Wick 2 when he's talking to Peter Serafinowicz, who's giving him like his outfits, and he's like, what kind of lining would you like on the jacket? And he goes, tactical. It's so good.
Anyway.
It's just the best. Fuck off.
Good, you're right.
One of these things, although there is something really spectacular in, and you make note of it in Coco as much as you do here, but like people like really playing instruments in these animated Pixar movies is kind of insane, because like I watched Ma Rainey's Black Bottom a little while ago, which is a movie about musicians in which most of the actors are not actually musicians. And they're pretty okay at faking it, like, enough, But every time there would be some, like, weird shot of Chadwick Boseman pretending to play the trumpet, and, like, it just doesn't line up with what he's doing, it, like, sucks you out of the movie, like, so completely, because you see, like, that's a guy pretending to play the trumpet, which is, like, so inherently ridiculous. It just totally... It takes you out of anything you could be enjoying about it. But, like, Pixar is so specific in these things about, like, doing not performance capture, but taking reference video of people playing the real instrument in real life and recreating that in animation on screen in a way that nobody else is doing, and in a way that is tremendously difficult to do even in a live action movie, you know?
Yeah.
And like, especially like, and you know, it's one thing where it's like, oh, I don't play the trumpet, but I know what it looks like when a person plays the trumpet. But like, I don't think I play the saxophone, and I don't think I've ever seen somebody playing a saxophone in a movie that looks as much like somebody actually playing a real saxophone in real life as Dorothea Williams in this movie playing saxophone does, you know, just in terms of like which buttons she's hitting when and like how she's holding it, you know?
Well, because in Coco, and specifically because it's guitar playing, that was like the first time that I saw Dad like really engage with an animated film. Because like obviously we've been kids the majority of our lives, and our fathers watched like animated movies with us. And Dad's never been like the I hate animated movies types, but he's always just like, watching them. And I remember watching Coco in theaters and him like excitedly telling both of us, like, hey, Miguel is playing like actual strings on the guitar.
Right.
And I could tell it just like immediately made him like more interested in the film because it not only does it show Miguel's passion and that he's actually playing the guitar, but also shows that the people making the film have the passion and the care to like actually make it look like these people are playing the instruments. And it definitely, for the people who know how to play those instruments, I think it definitely draws them in and makes them like appreciate what's going on way more.
Yeah, for sure.
I think like Pixar, more than any other like animation studio, is super committed to telling like the most authentic story they can, like on every single level, which is so great to see in like an animation studio that's specifically for children.
Right.
And it makes me think of like the question that's been raised the past few years, like what makes a Pixar movie feel like a Pixar movie? Because like Onward didn't feel like a Pixar movie, and The Great Dinosaur ruined Pixar, blah blah blah, like all of that stuff. You know, you've heard it. You've heard the things. But I think what for me, the way I define what makes a Pixar movie feel like a Pixar movie is it's a like a more nuanced and like difficult theme to grasp than what has traditionally been told in stories. So like there's no girl boss, there's no like true love's kiss,
right,
or whatever. There's no knight in shining armor,
right?
But there are still like themes for kids that are digestible, and there are like authentic tales being spun.
Right.
I think that's what feels like Pixar to me.
Because there is something about Pixar that I think the thing that made Pixar as successful as they were was that their movies feel really uncorporate in a certain kind of way. Like they always feel like they're doing something that is unique and original, even when they're doing like a sequel that you didn't ask for. Their storytelling is such that it never feels like trite or like anything was like, oh, fucking okay. You know,
we gotta do this part.
Yeah, like there's something about it. They just have an integrity that's like so woven into the fabric of their brand is what I think allows Pixar to make a movie like this, a movie that is so, I don't know how else to describe it other than uncommercial. You know? Like, how do you pitch a little kid on this? You know? Like, how do
you want your own 22 stuffed animal?
Like, in a world where this came out in theaters like it was supposed to have done, like, how do you cut together a trailer for this that makes little kids want to go see it? Like, I wouldn't be able to figure it out, you know? And, you know, they figure out something, they, like, play with it to make something that feels like
the trailer that they did make, like, forever ago, before they basically were saying, oh, this has to come out online.
Right.
But they put 22 in a cowboy hat, and she was doing a stupid fucking dance, and that was the tagline. It was like, it's like the Minions, kids, and it's not like the Minions, kids.
Yeah. Or you like that one, it's up.
Maybe like 20 seconds of like when he eats the pizza and then like it poops out because he's a spirit and they don't have bodies. and it's like ha 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 ha.
But then the trailer has to be over because there's nothing else. We got nothing else, kids.
Minuscule part
Right.
of the movie.
And because that's the thing, is that there's nobody else, like, even the most groundbreaking animated movies of the last few years, things like Wolfwalkers, things like Spider-Verse, have a commercial appeal to them at the end of the day, you know? They don't feel like grown-up intellectual art movies. They feel like exciting, fun family movies that kids might like, and they're also just great on top of that, you know? Like, Pixar are the only people who could make a movie like this that just feels so, I don't, like, I guess just weird, you know? And they are still, like, PG-rated family movies, even in spite of that, but that's, like, the one line that even they still can't really hop over, that people have been trying to get people to do for so long. But still, I think there's just something, I think that is, their uncommercialness is what people like about them, which is just so crazy.
Yeah, I think what's ruined Disney movies for a lot of people is that commercialism, because you just can't ignore it anymore. Like, you could kind of ignore it before, but, like, it's just, you can't consume any Disney media without, like, feeling that commercialism, like, just coming in the sides, so it's just, like, a narrow pinpoint of what's left of the movie.
Right.
But Pixar has been able to, like, preserve that. And I do think I talked about this with Coraline, I think, but that the art medium itself just makes it feel scrappy. Like, animation is always going to have so much more inherent pathos than live action is. I think just because animation has not always been, like, has not always been respected as much as it should have, or has not always been as profitable as it should have, like, because somebody had to do so much more work to do animation, I think it has a built-in pathos. Because you were talking about, like, with groundbreaking movies, that they have to be, like, uncorporate, and the first thing that I thought of was Shrek, which was immediate, like, the whole concept of Shrek is just like, hey, fuck fairy tales, we're gonna tell our own fairy tale, and, like, a comedic winking, look at the camera kind of way that, like, just works so well and is so genuine. And I think Shrek would fucking blow ass if it was live action. I don't think we would still be talking about Shrek if it was live action, you know? But because it was groundbreaking animation, it just has so much pathos built in, you know?
Right. But I think there's a difference between the kind of non-corporateness of Shrek and the kind of non-corporateness of Soul. Whereas, like, Shrek feels tough. Shrek feels edgy. And that in and of itself has a commercial appeal, you know? Being like, fuck the kind of stuff you've seen before. Look at this. And Shrek takes a shit on something and you're like, whoa. But, like,
that's not the good part of Shrek, and you know
yeah,
it.
I know. But it's like, it's satirizing Disney explicitly. It's like going out of its way to, like, poke fun at tropes that you're used to seeing played so genuinely. And that in and of itself is, like, what got people interested. With Soul, like, it's, you know, like, with Shrek, that's a pitch, you know, that you can slam on a trailer and people are like, oh, holy shit. It's, like, anti-corporate as opposed to just not being corporate, you know?
That's fair. That's really fair.
And, like, I think, and it's also hilarious with Shrek that Shrek has become the only model for, like, corporate animated movies now. Like,
yeah, what the fuck happened, man?
I've talked about it so often on the podcast,
yeah,
but I
fucking hate DreamWorks just solely because of how much they commercialize Shrek.
Well, it's not even like that. It's like just the tone of Shrek is the tone of what every animated movie needs to be now. It needs to be self-referential.
Like smarmy.
It needs to be smarmy. It needs to be making fun of other animated movies in some kind of way. It needs to be self-aware and poke fun at itself at any possible opportunity. And no matter what, it cannot feel sincere, you know?
Yeah.
For some reason...
Shrek is very sincere. Don't shit on Shrek.
But it's not sincere in... Adeline, Shrek is
it has I see what you're saying,
sincere emotion at the heart of it, but it is a cynical, smarmy, snide movie. Don't pretend like it's not.
pretending that
totally
it
see what
isn't.
you're
The
saying,
moral
where,
of
like,
that movie is that we need to reevaluate the stories that we are given and realize that there are other stories out there. That's the point of Shrek, is that the stories that we have been told are incomplete and don't leave room for people who don't fit the perfect image. That's the moral of Shrek.
I'm not
I think
saying
that's
that. Go ahead, Kezia.
I think it's yeah, I think that's a fair point. I love Shrek, and I think that what it brings up, like a Beauty and the Beast story where both people end up like beasts, but that doesn't matter because screw you for selling this story to kids that you have to be beautiful and talented and
Right.
smart and kind and all of these things. Like obviously, like that's not necessary. Uh like because you're a valid human being without all of that stuff.
Right.
But I yeah, I think that like Shrek can get lost in like, oh, you like princesses? Well, they're stupid. Oh, you think that happily ever after exists? Well, that's stupid, and you're
Right.
stupid for liking it. And I think that like this movie is it like casts 22 in what's the point of Earth? Like, there's literally just pain and depression and some weird smells, and like I'm up here and I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. I can just be, and that's fine. I'd rather like not risk it. And then seeing like that there is beauty and also pain and like arguments and being good at walking and pizza, like that
Right.
all make life feel good and real and lived in and not perfect, but like worth it. I think that like that is the pinnacle of Pixar for me.
Right.
Mhm.
The
I
and.
think I think Kate is bringing up a valuable point in the chat, which is this is just a defense of Shrek now at this point, but I want to defend Shrek. Shrek does do the same thing where Shrek goes through that growth of realizing that that cynical worldview is wrong, and if he continues to live like that, he's just gonna be alone and unhappy his whole life. And then realizing that there are good things like happy ever after and princesses, and realizing that there are good things that also come with those ideas, and that he and Fiona live happily ever after. Like I think it's the same idea of going from cynical to realizing that there
Yeah.
is good in this thing that you thought you were always going to hate.
I mean, look, we're not actually arguing because I know that we feel the same thing about Shrek as a movie. We're talking about the vocabulary that we're using.
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
what I mean is that it is a movie that is inherently transgressive, right?
Yes.
In a way that other animated movies of the time were not. And it's explicitly satirizing a very specific thing, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
And the difference between Shrek and like the snideness of 21st century children's movies is that the all of these movies have some element of sincerity to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ralph Breaks the Internet is like the pinnacle of this. You know, of course that movie is at its heart a movie about, you know, leaving, you know, how you manage relationships with people and what does it mean when you can't be with somebody anymore and all that kind of stuff. There is sincerity at its heart, but it doesn't change the fact that it can't stop winking at the audience, and it can't stop making fun of itself, and it can't stop poking fun at tropes in this kind of movie in a way that is infuriating and so irritating. Does that make more sense? Is that more fair?
Yeah, that totally makes more sense. Yeah, I agree with your original point that says while Shrek is anti-corporate, Soul is not corporate. I think that
Right.
totally sums it up.
Apparently, so when this movie came out, people were like, where's John Ratzenberger? Why isn't John Ratzenberger in this? Because he's been in every Pixar movie. And
Yeah.
Pete Docter was like, he's in there. Everyone was like, where? He's like, it's a secret. So people are just looking for John
Figure it
Ratzenberger in
out.
there.
Did
Pete
he
Docter.
say some shitty stuff on Twitter?
I don't think so. No.
I thought he said some shitty stuff on Twitter.
But like, apparently, there's just a secret John Ratzenberger cameo in here somewhere that people are trying to find.
Where was
Maybe
he
Pete
in?
Docter
Does he
was just
speak in, like
like
a different language?
my theory personally is that Pete Docter just forgot to put him in there, and in that interview was like, oh fuck, like, no, he's in there.
Sure, he's one of the
Figure it
dead
out.
people that's like on the conveyor belt in that first scene. I'm
Maybe.
sure he's one of those.
It's like, oh, it's a secret. It's a secret one that we put in there just for us. That one we were like, this one's just for the boys.
Yeah. As I talking about
If
this
you're
movie,
a real fan,
talking about how this movie like doesn't have a lot for kids. There's not a lot. There's a lot of funny situations and a lot of really like earnest
that's true.
situations, but there's not really a lot of jokes. But that being said, the funniest fucking joke in this movie is when he goes, "Is this HE double hockey sticks?" And all the unborn souls start going, "Hell, hell,
Yeah.
hell. This is hell, hell." It's the funniest thing on
That's
the planet.
really good.
Yeah.
That is,
bro.
or not.
I'm sorry, I looked up the John Ratzenberger thing.
Yeah.
And it's that they animated him into the movie. He's
Oh,
in the movie.
bullshit. That's
No,
bullshit.
He's in the subway, bro. I'm
That's
telling
malarkey.
you, that's what they did. That's what they did.
That's bullshit.
I'm
not saying it's not true. I'm saying it's whack.
Listen, you might hear his voice. I think that's dope.
No,
I don't know what you're talking about.
He's gotta play a part. He's gotta be like, "Oh, hey, I'm John Ratzenberger," and you're like, and then you can lean over to your girlfriend and say, "That's John Ratzenberger. He has a cameo in every Pixar movie." That's the magic
slaps
of
you
it.
because she already knows that.
And you can lean over to your
That's the
girlfriend
voice
and
of
say,
Ham.
"That's the soul."
That's the soul.
Yeah.
It's called Black Mirror because if you turn off your phone, your screen is like reflective.
Exactly.
It's a reflection on our own society. It's not the future. It's now. That's the thing. Listen, I think that's pretty cool. All right.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I'm just
sorry
saying
to
I want him to
interrupt.
get paid for it. If he doesn't have a voice in there, I don't think he's getting paid.
You don't think they were like, John, if we use your likeness, how do you feel about that?
I don't know. Because John Ratzenberger is just like famously like the king of residuals. That guy's just like raking in money every month for no reason because he was in Empire Strikes Back and Toy Story. Like,
You're just never gonna stop making money.
You're just set forever. Like, I don't know. I want John Ratzenberger to get that fucking bread with every new Pixar release. That's what I want.
I'm sorry, I'm just a John Ratzenberger stan. I don't know what you want me to say.
I'm just built different.
Follow my stan account on TikTok, John Ratzy fan.
Ratzenberger. I can't think of any other live action John Ratzenberger besides that one guy who Han Solo tells to go to hell in Empire Strikes Back.
I don't know. ADK. I'm not actually a John Ratzenberger stan. I'm a liar.
Anyway,
I don't know enough about his career.
And like,
I was gonna say about I retract what I said about this not being for kids, because watching a soul that's never walked around in a grown adult man's body is so funny to watch. Like him flopping around, eating pizza, and then also there's a man inside of a cat. That's gold. That's comedy gold for kids.
Right. Oh, he also has a role in Superman, in the Richard Donner Superman.
Guys, John Ratzenberger is a Trump supporter.
Okay, whatever.
I'm playing the saxophone.
Look at me, look at my fingers, they match real life.
But like the sequence where I'm obsessed with the sound design in this movie, because like I was watching some of the behind the scenes stuff before we started recording and talking to like all the sound people who worked on this. Like they talked about like the first like obviously the big question is like, what is this like before time sound like? Like when stuff moves, what does it sound like? And the first question they asked is like, he's gonna fall down the manhole and he's gonna like land on his ass on this like hard thing, right? And they're like, what sound is that gonna make? And as soon as you like imagined having to like sort through that problem, you know, like it sort of unlocks like how much work the sound design is doing in the rest of the movie, you know?
Oh yeah.
And like what they decide on is just like this very bassy, like there's not like an impact sound, there's just like the aftermath of an impact sound, I guess, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it reminds me of the sound Sun makes in Finding Nemo when they're like jumping on the jellyfish. It's like kind of like that sound.
Right, yeah. And like
I love.
and the other choice that I think is so smart is the little like mosquito buzz when they go through the portal to the great beyond, because it perfectly conveys something that would freak you out but is also not horrifying, you know? It's
Mhm.
like that perfect level of being like, no thank you, without being like, you know, like it's just that perfect little butter zone of like, I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, I think that this movie is like the master of subtlety, where it's not like this is the future and technology buzzing, and it's not like the afterlife, but it's like somewhere in between, like this unknown, and it's not scary, but it is not something you're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is, I don't know how to do that, like unfamiliar but comforting, which it's oxymoronical. It doesn't make sense, but it's good. I like it. Really like this movie. I think
Right.
it's really good.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good too. That's
I
the
think
thing
it-
about Pixar movies now, is that every time one of these comes out and it's like a great movie, people are like, yeah, you know, it's no Incredibles. It is just like doomed to be like, you know, it's not the Incredibles, because obviously it's not, but like there are so many times, like I think Coco and Inside Out and Soul are all these movies that are like incredible, like great, like 8 or 9 out of 10 movies, but because they have that Pixar title card at the beginning, you're like, yeah, it's like probably like B or C tier Pixar, you know? Like
Yeah.
your expectations are so insanely high every time. It feels like every movie people are always like way more measured about their
Yeah.
praise of it than they would be
Which
for
just means
anything
if
else.
you love that film and you go to Disneyland, you're just fucked because there's not going to be anything for you.
Oh,
Well,
I feel like I would more highly rate Coco than I would ever rate The Incredibles. And I know that like The Incredibles is super beloved and great and fantastic, but I think that Coco has just so much more to say and to teach children about like the world that I would rather rewatch Coco. And I've only seen Soul 1.5 times now. So I don't know if I would rate Soul that highly, but I think I can't think of another like movie in general that has like the point of the movie is like you don't have to be good at something or the most talented or even talented. Like your life is worthy, and
right.
like that's the point. Like I've never seen that before, and I think that
Mhm.
like that's what they've been going with. Or like
It's like,
Onward, which like wasn't treated like people were like, it doesn't feel like Pixar. It's fine. It's not the best, obviously. But
Right.
I've never seen like, or I just haven't seen like a movie recently that explores what does it feel like to love someone that you never knew.
Right.
Like he loves his dad, but he never met him. I think that's crazy. Like that's crazy to present to 7 to 12-year-olds.
Right.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's better. I think that's how I feel personally.
I do think talking about Brad Bird has kind of just ruined like Ratatouille and the because like I can't look at those movies without seeing Brad Bird's like, oh, exceptional people deserve the world kind of thing, you know? Like I feel like this movie and Coco are kind of literally the opposite. Or it's like you were not put on this planet for one purpose. You were put on this planet to live, and you can do whatever the hell you want with the life that you were given, you know?
Right.
Like they just feel like so much like the opposite of that kind of like mindset, you know?
Right. I look, I wasn't pointing out The Incredibles specifically. I just mean in general, like there are so many classic Pixar
Yeah.
masterpieces
Yeah,
that
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
they're constantly like shooting themselves in the foot just by being so awesome all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
It's no Finding Nemo. Shut the fuck up, man. I know it's not.
But like I think that at this point, those movies are all like that was when Pixar was young and it was really amazing that this studio like just kept putting out so many consistent, beautiful, creative, like artistic movies
Right.
that are still super appropriate for families. I think that like we're moving into this time where maybe we need to readjust and reconsider like how we've been feeling and describing Pixar movies, because I'm really hung up on this, like what feels like Pixar. I don't think that's fair. No one's like, what feels like DreamWorks. Blah, 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 blah." Like I think that if a studio is so good at telling stories that we shouldn't rate them based off of a weird arbitrary scale that we as an audience created, you know?
Yeah, because it
Uh,
feels like it doesn't feel like Pixar shooting themselves in the foot. It feels like the audience shooting Pixar in the face,
Well,
you
yeah,
know?
exactly.
Like I love like something about Onward. I think it just has to do with my obsession with D&D and just like the place where I was in my life, like coming out of high school. Like I loved Onward. I feel like Onward like struck super specific chords with me. I love the aesthetic of that movie. I think it's a great movie. I cry at the ending every time. And it's just like, and then people are like, fucking whatever. I'm like, nobody talks about Onward. And I'm like, Onward. And if any other studio had made it, they would have loved it. But because it's Pixar, they're like, oh, it's bad, which is just dumb. It's dumb. I don't like it.
Well, yeah. Well,
Finding
yeah.
not the same as Finding Nemo.
Just cause Finding Nemo. Where'd all the talking fish go?
You know what? I think Finding Nemo is overrated. I think that's like not bottom tier Pixar, but like that's in like
Whoa.
the bottom 50%
Finding Nemo
for
is the
sure.
worst Pixar ever made.
I feel like I can't speak to where I would rate Finding Nemo, because when I was growing up, before my sister was attending school, so I was like in second or third grade, every day I would come home and my sister watched Finding Nemo every single day for months. And I'm not lying. Every single day.
Right.
And so I would come home at like this around the same time every day. So I've seen like the last third to last half of Finding Nemo a lot.
Right.
So and against my will. So
Yeah.
I my rating is, it's unfair. It's biased.
Right.
But it's an excellent film. I like Pixar. What can I say?
Yeah. Well, okay. So we've done over the course of this podcast, we've done many Pixar episodes. It's kind of our brand at this point that we
Yeah, it's kind of our thing.
we gotta do these. We've never gone through, and instead of trying to make a ranking on the fly, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to say the titles of every Pixar movie, and you just give it a grade, A through F. That'll be our tier list, our personal tier list. Okay.
Gosh. Okay, I'm ready. I feel like this is my whole life has led up to this.
Yeah. And we and by the way, I'll just take a quick second here. It's so cool seeing so many new people in the chat hanging around. I don't want to interrupt the podcast for too long, but Marco Arrea and Lechi and Chaz the Pukeko. Lots of super fun, cool names for me to say out loud.
Jackson has to figure out how to say.
Headquarter Productions has been here so many times, and we really appreciate them. Like, it's super cool seeing you guys. We've been working at this for a long time, and like feeling like we're finally pulling in some people feels great.
So thank you for complimenting the art.
Yeah,
I did it, and I'm proud of
Adeline drew it. Okay. So we're just gonna kind of rapid fire these, okay?
Gotcha.
A,
B, C, D, F. Okay.
Do we have
Thank
an
you for
S
explaining
tier?
grades to us.
Do you want? I'm just setting the rules.
I think here's what I think. I think we each get one S tier movie. Just
Oh.
one.
We get to point out our S tier. Okay. Toy Story.
B.
C.
B plus.
I say B for Toy Story. Bugs Life.
D.
B minus. I really like Bugs Life.
I say D. I think Bugs Life down there.
It's not very good.
Okay. Toy Story 2.
I think I need to broaden my scale. Oh no.
A.
I missed it. I'm sorry, I was talking.
Toy Story 2.
What's the next? Toy Story 2. B minus.
A for me on Toy Story 2 also.
A. Yep. Way better
Monsters,
than the
Inc.
first one. B.
A.
A for me on Monsters Inc. Finding Nemo.
B.
B minus.
I say C for Finding Nemo. I think Finding Nemo is not that great. The Incredibles.
C.
B.
Incredibles is A for me.
Yeah,
Cars.
yeah.
I feel like I'm opening myself up to criticism.
Cars.
F minus. Negative
Cars
billion.
1.
Cars
Cars
1?
1. C.
Negative billion.
I say B. I'm gonna stick up for Cars. Ratatouille.
B.
A minus.
I say B for Ratatouille. Wall-E.
I want to say A, but I feel like it's a disingenuous A, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
I'm gonna say B for myself.
Wall-E's a B for me too. I can't get over how preachy the second half of Wall-E is.
Yeah, that's really fair.
Up.
C
I've seen
plus.
people bad mouthing Up a lot, and I will not stand for that slander. I think Up's an A.
I haven't seen it in a really long time. That might be the Pixar movie I haven't seen in the longest time. In my memory, it's an A. But I would be willing to reconsider.
I think that the first 10 minutes are obviously an A plus.
Of course.
Then I think a lot of the movie gets lost in meandery.
Right.
But it's still good. So C plus for me.
Toy Story 3.
C plus for me.
I think Toy Story C is like a B minus.
I like Toy Story 3. I think Toy Story 3 was the best ending for the Toy Story series.
Disagree.
I agree.
No.
No, the leaving the legacy to go on with a new kid when Andy goes to college. I think that was a great ending for the series.
Ending of Toy Story 4 is a masterpiece. I won't stand for this. Cars 2.
Negative billion.
So yeah, obviously that's F.
Super fail.
Brave.
D plus.
I would say C.
Haven't seen it.
It's a good movie and I like it. I love Merida. I do think a lot of the movie is just Bear.
Right. Okay.
I do love. I'll be shooting for me own hand.
Yeah, I love the mother-daughter. I love the fun Scottish. I think the aesthetic is great. I think we get lost in the weeds a little bit.
Monsters University.
C minus.
C.
That's a hard C.
Yeah, maybe a D.
Inside Out.
A.
I would say B.
I think I'd go for B for Inside Out too.
I think I'm giving everything a B.
I forgot. Oh no, I didn't actually.
Good Dinosaur.
Oh,
I have not
D
seen the film.
Minus,
Yeah,
D minus.
Me neither. Look, you don't need to get too hung up on it. These are just knee-jerk reactions that we are keeping no meaningful record of.
Great, understand.
Besides this podcast.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but we're not like writing it down so you can compare them to each other. If somebody's gonna write down all our grades and be like, "You said A for Toy Story 2, but B for Finding Nemo," like, no one's gonna do that.
And earlier in the podcast, you said
Exactly. Okay. What's next? Finding Dory.
D.
C.
It's
I
a
really
hard-
like Henry.
It's a hard C for me too. I think Monsters University and Finding Dory are like equal levels of I don't really care that much.
Yeah.
Like
I
they're
agree.
fine. They're not bad, but just like whatever.
What's the point?
Cars 3.
I haven't seen it.
C.
C for me too. I think that's on Finding Dory, Monsters University level 2. Coco.
A.
That's my S tier.
I haven't been doing an S tier. I forgot.
Yeah, it might have to be my S tier too, because I fucking love that movie.
I think my S tier would be either Toy Story 2 or Incredibles.
That's fair.
I didn't grade my Toy Story 2 correctly. I gave Toy Story 2 an A. I'm so sorry. I got confused.
Yeah, I think I have to give Coco my S tier too.
Okay.
But Coco is
Incredibles
my
2.
S tier.
See, I have to give it
minus.
an A, or else I have to murder Jackson on the spot.
I give Incredibles 2 a fucking D. I think
You fucking hate that movie so
I
much.
think Incredibles 2 blows. I think Pixar has 2 bad movies. I think they're Cars 2 and Incredibles 2.
What's the next movie?
Okay, we're in the home stretch. Toy Story 4.
C. I did not like Toy Story 4.
Adeline.
It's an A.
Oh, okay, good. Because it's a fucking A, baby! Toy Story 4!
I did not like Toy Story 4.
Toy Story 4 is
Toy Story 4 is good.
the second
think-
best Toy Story movie.
I think, okay,
disagree.
Keisha, I thought that Toy Story 4 was unnecessary, but what we got was very, very good.
No, I think Toy
I
Story
think what
4
we
is
got
a
was
better
good.
ending to the series.
I also
I think
think
what
Toy
we got
Story
was-
4 really screws over Bonnie and makes her look like a dick.
I think Toy Story 4 really unravels the whole point of Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. So it's a C for me because it's beautiful and well acted, but what's the point? We can talk
Onward.
about this some other time. Onward, B+.
Adeline, what'd you say?
I said A.
Oh, okay. I think I'll go for B for Onward, too. And last but not least, Soul.
A, definitely.
I almost want to give it an A. I feel like I'm closer to B, though.
Honestly, A-. I'm changing Onward to A-.
Wait, you're changing
I
which
have-
one?
I-
Oh, Onward.
Both of them are A- for me.
And then the next three, what we have to look forward to.
Just
Luke-
a gut reaction.
Yeah, gut reaction. What do you think Luca's gonna be?
I think Luca.
Is that the one
B.
with the boy who's friends with the ocean?
I think so.
I think they're in trouble. I think they might get too much just like Moana. I don't
Ooh. Or too much just like Call Me By Your Name, right? The plot synopsis basically just sounds like Call Me By Your Name.
maybe.
I say my prediction, Luca gonna be a B.
I think it's gonna be a C.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be the worst Pixar movie ever.
Whoa. It's on the
Worse
record
than
now.
Nemo.
No, I have no idea. How am I supposed to know?
And Turning Red.
Is that
Uh,
racist?
Oh no, that's the one I saw a theory about this.
It's the
'Cause
one that Don
22
Michi is
no.
directing about the little girl who turns into a red panda when she gets excited.
Yeah, no, because
Oh.
22 goes to
Yeah.
Central China at the end of the movie, and so people are thinking that 22 might be the girl in Turning Red.
I think that's dumb. I think Turning Red's gonna be an A tier. I think that one's gonna kick ass.
It does. The little girl looks really cute, and the red panda looks really cute. I think that'll be a B plus.
And final, 2022, you guessed it, fucking Buzz Lightyear.
I think that's gonna suck shit, dog. I think that's gonna be a bad time.
I'm giving it my S
But I
tier.
do-
I forgot to give an earlier movie an S tier. I'm giving Lightyear my S tier.
You can give a movie your S tier if you want, retroactively.
Yeah, I said it would probably be either Toy Story 2 or Incredibles. I also
You
just
have
want
to
to point
choose
out,
one, Brian. You can't just pick.
Chaz the Pukeko, just being like, have you guys heard about We Can Be Heroes? As if they're not just like dropping an atomic bomb on this podcast.
Yeah, we
Stop
cannot
to
get into
unravel
that.
the entire
Because-
conversation
will.
for another hour.
Because I think it's good and Keisha thinks it's bad. And we've been fighting about it for a few days. It doesn't matter.
We have
I haven't
hard
seen it.
disagreements. On
I
Disney
said this
Heroes.
earlier, but I'll say it again just for the stream, is that I have so much nostalgia for the original Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I love that movie as a kid. I don't know why, but I did. And then looking back on it, like as an adult, I'm pretty sure it's maybe one of the shittiest movies ever made. It's really not good. So I don't know. I don't know how good We Can Be Heroes can really be, you know?
Right. One of the things about Soul, the movie that we're podcasting about today,
Yeah, uh-huh.
I'm fascinated that they made the decision to... This also sort of ties into the whole, like, non-commercialness of it, too. The decision to hide the part of the movie where there's a talking cat in all of the marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like, who won that argument where they were like, so I know there's very little to actually show kids. What if you took the talking... You're not allowed to use the talking animal in the marketing. Was this somebody, like, trying to challenge themselves? Trying to be like...
Kind of the same. Like for a while in Onward, they like didn't really talk about how their dad would be
pair of
legs
pants.
the whole time.
Right, yeah.
Like I think that was like a secret for a while. Like
Yeah, but then they told us, and then we were all
That's
like,
true,
what the
that's true.
fuck?
Yeah, we
What are
really
you
were-
fucking talking
we
about?
were straight up blindsided about this cat switcheroo.
Because I feel like I've noticed a trend with Disney movies specifically being a lot more cagey about sort of like any sort of early twists, quote unquote, in movies. Like, I think of the fact that we didn't know that the dad was just going to be legs. We didn't know that they were going to go back in time in Avengers Endgame. And I mean, we kind of did based on like reporting and stuff, but it wasn't like in the trailers. Like, that was just a surprise
Yeah.
when you sat down. And like, I feel like Disney is getting more like, because I feel like that whole they gave away the whole movie in the trailer thing is like so rampant right now, which, look, this is just my own personal beef. Most of the time when people say that, they don't actually, they just think that's the end of the movie. Whatever they think it is. Usually they're going over the events of the first act of the movie, and there's much beyond it that people don't know about.
They're setting up the conflict.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
you
like,
know.
they gave away the whole movie. That was what happens at the end, right? No, it's not. It's not what happens at the end.
Right.
Or like when it's like Spider-Man and it's like, and here's a little bit of footage from when they fight at the end, and they're like, you gave it away. It's like, yeah, Spider-Man
You
and
knew
the
they were
Vulture
gonna
are gonna
fight
fight
at the
at the end. What the fuck are you talking about?
Did you think that wasn't gonna?
They were just gonna have a chat.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
My fear going into this movie was that it was gonna be just blobs the whole time. I think a lot of
Right.
people have this fear. And
Mhm.
like, especially since there's been like this weird and upsetting trend of like Black lead characters not being in human bodies.
Mhm.
Like Princess and the Frog and the spy one with Will Smith. Not totally spies. I don't remember what it's called.
Spies in disguise.
We
Spies
could be
in disguise.
spies.
We can be spies.
We-
And
But
there
yeah.
are like other ones, but it's just
I mean,
it's
Brother
like-
Bear.
Brother Bear, yeah, just like a lot of people of color, which is also makes me hesitant with the Panda movie, but I also trust in the filmmakers. So
Because, yeah, that's one
I
of the
feel-
things
yeah.
that I'm fascinated by, like, listening to a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. They pulled, like, basically the exact same move that they did with Coco, which is basically, it's just, like, Pixar, at least as it is. There's a lot of really interesting reading I did, because now that Lasseter's out, Pete Docter is, like, the chief creative officer of Pixar, and he's talked a lot about how, like, there's been a lot of reporting about how he's being very specific because the Pixar culture was so overwhelmingly white men for so long that
Yeah,
like
it's the most disheartening thing in the world.
well, but Pete Docter is being very, very specific where when he's staffing people to be like, I want every important meeting to have like more or less exactly 50% women. He wants more diversity and all these kinds of things. Like, I've seen a lot of different interviews from a lot of different people being like, Pete Docter's fucking killing it on making this a better work environment.
Mhm.
But they pulled like exactly the same thing they did with Coco, where they were like, we have this idea. And they're like, okay, so we are all white guys though is the thing, and I'm the director, and I'm not going to stop being the director, but I will pull somebody from that culture who was an animator or something and like raise them up and let them be the co-director, which is what they did with Coco, where it was Leon Critch was the director, who was a white guy, and then they let Adrian Molina come up and be like a co-director to just like have a Mexican perspective and be like, here's what we're doing right and wrong and what needs to be going on. Did the same thing. Co-director on Soul is Kemp Powers is his name, who was just an animator who happened to be black. Who they were just like, oh hey, come on up here, help us make this movie, make sure we're not doing anything
Jackson,
wrong.
that makes it sound like they just found a black man on the street and were like,
Well,
hey, you're black.
Well, it was I mean, that's kind of what it was. It was, somebody within their department. It was, probably somebody they know and trust. But I'm describing this as being a little bit whack because I think it is a little bit whack that they were just like picking the one guy who was black to just come up and, be the guy who is more important to like make sure they're doing everything right, which is like simultaneously like probably the right decision in that particular scenario, but it's also just a weird way to conduct business within your like corporate family,
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a weird thing that is like better than not doing anything, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like they could be doing a much better job, but also like historically representing like people of color in animation has a lot of times been putting in voice actors, and maybe not even putting in voice actors that are close to representing those people, and then it's all white people behind the scenes.
Right.
So I appreciate the like arc towards
Just step in the right
hey, maybe we'll
direction.
give that well, maybe we'll make the director actually a black person this
Right, yeah.
time.
Maybe
Um,
they'll get him next time.
the and one of the things I thought was so fascinating, because that's the thing when it comes to like diversity and inclusion in film that people talk about a lot, is cinematography, and like how the way that you shoot people with darker skin has to be very different from the way that you shoot white people, just in
Mhm.
terms of the way you set up the camera, in terms of lighting, in terms of like what's going to make people actually show up against things, you know.
Yeah.
And so like black cinematography is like a whole issue that people have to be conscientious of. And I read that apparently they brought in Bradford Young to be a lighting consultant on this movie, who's
Oh, that's
a
cool.
black DP who's done a lot of work in that sort of area. They were like, we're gonna grab a live action DP and like have him make sure we're doing this whole black cinematography thing right, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. Which
Um,
I think shows in the movie, especially when they're like doing the darkest scenes in the movie are definitely when they're like at the jazz club and they've got like that red and that blue and that purple light and
mhm.
like nobody disappears because they have darker skin tone. Like you can definitely tell.
Right, yeah. I don't know, it's just I love Bradford Young a lot. He's like a cinematographer. He did Arrival and he did Solo, a Star Wars story. Like those are just like his prettiest movies, but he's just like a young cinematographer that I'm always really excited to see, because
Yeah.
those movies look so good, and
Yeah.
this movie
I
looks so good lighting wise.
yeah. I was gonna say the difference between Coco and Soul, just from like a cultural perspective, because like obviously black culture is a thing and we need to represent black people correctly and stuff. But I know with Coco, they just like basically what they did is they were like, all right, we're gonna go to Mexico for a year and just make it look exactly like that. And that's
Right.
why Coco looks so good and looks so perfect, is because they'd put in so much time to be like, all right, we're just gonna take 2 years and we're just gonna research and that's all we're gonna do. Because I think and then versus when you're doing like black culture in New York, it's like, okay, we're just gonna live for 2 years in New York. That's not the same
Right.
thing, you know?
Yeah.
And also it just this isn't relevant, but it just makes me laugh because early in production in Coco, they had because so much of Coco is like the Spanish and Mexican influenced music with mariachi and all that stuff and all the different types of music that's not just mariachi. But they had the people who wrote the music for Frozen, they had them write 2 songs for Coco, and they're maybe the most like I get maybe it's just because I've seen the music in the film after it came out, but it was just like the most like white people corporate like Broadway music
Right.
ever. It's the weirdest thing if you look it up. It's like the like Frozen style Broadway singing about Dia de los Muertos. It's just like it's so bad. It's so weird.
Right. Um the okay, so the one like sort of plot element in this movie that I have a hard time with is the weird little miniature arc with the trombone kid, because I'm not 100% sure what was going on with that.
This thing this movie is about on some level it is about being a teacher. That is the relationship between 22 and I
Right.
can't think of his name. Joe?
Joe.
Joe Gardner. Yeah, it's the relationship
Mhm.
between 22 and Joe is a teacher student relationship. He is a teacher. And we see that at the end when he's going into the zone for the last time and realizing like what he's learned and like we see the shots of him like teaching kids and stuff. Like this movie is about being a teacher, especially with the scene at the end when spoiler alert 22 is a lost soul and you see all her past mentors and like how bad teachers have had such an effect on her life and like how she sees herself and her self-esteem and all that stuff, which I think is an excellent B plot, but we kind of don't have time for it. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't fit in as perfectly as I think it should because the whole thing with her and like him like I feel like she should have been more inspiration to Joe than it was for 22, because Joe was like, yeah, of course she wasn't going to quit trombone. She loves trombone, whatever. But for 22, it was like this thing is hard, and she kept at it, and she stuck with it. Like, it's supposed to be this, like, learning is worth it when you're learning about something that you love or something like that. Like, any kind of anything that would connect it to that B plot of, like, teaching and learning and being a teacher and that kind of thing. But it just kind of doesn't, you know?
Me, I think this is what I took from that scene, is that the way that Joe teaches and the way that he approaches life is that you find what you're passionate about, and then you get good at that, and then you get so good that you're great and you reach whatever the highest level may be. For him, it's being a professional, like, full-time jazz musician. And so when you see this student, she is obviously talented at the trombone, but at one point she, like, just doesn't care about it anymore. Like, it's just not doing it for her. And I think that 22's arc, like, her arc is about, like, finding life, and Joe is approaching it from, what you need to find is your purpose, and that purpose is what you are on the planet for. And it's revealed, like, really subtly. Like, I mean, obviously people get it, but they're not like, oh, you dumb idiots, actually the whole point to life is being alive, didn't you get it, dummies? uh, so when, like, 22 is watching the student playing trombone, she's literally like, yeah, you should quit. Like, it's not worth it. Like, nothing's worth it. You're totally right.
Right.
I agree with you. Quit. And she's like, wait a second, I actually want to try again. And so instead of being like, I'm not good enough, I don't, like, I'm getting lost in this, like, she goes back to a place of, like, I'm finding joy in this thing. And so, like, 22 sees that, like, realization of, oh, I'm not doing this because my teacher told me I was good. I'm not doing this because I've been encouraged and I've practiced so much. I'm doing this because it's what brings me joy in life. I think that's what it's for.
Right.
Because that's what convinces 22 and, like, gives her Earth badge or whatever.
Right. Which is one of those Wreck-It Ralph logic things where it's just like, until it becomes an Earth badge, I can't transfer it to anybody else because I said so. You're like, okay,
yeah,
sure, fine.
yeah.
And you're like, well, they did
we
tell
don't control
me.
the after before life.
Right. And the other thing is, I don't know, this is honestly my biggest problem with this movie. And it's almost a CinemaSins criticism, but I don't feel like it really is, because this movie is so focused on world building, and this feels
shoot your shot.
like a big break in that world building, which is like, okay, so when they get their spark, it's because it's not like their passion or their meaning, it's just like their will to live, their enthusiasm for the idea of being alive, right? Mm-hmm. Sure, great. But why do any of them get that spark if they can't think or feel or taste or experience any kind of joy because they're not alive yet, right? Like, 22 gets her spark by firsthand experiencing the sensation of being alive and is like, oh, yo, this rips, I'd love to do that. And so now she can. But it's like, why do you need to be shown specific things in, like, this depression world where you don't quite have emotions yet? Why would anybody ever get a spark for being alive? Does that make sense?
I think so. I think that's, like, kind of what I was feeling towards the beginning too. Like, but I think that that's why I love this movie so much, is that a lot of times, like, we're shown, like, Moana is good because she learns how to sail and she's brave, and Mulan learns how to fight and she's courageous and honest and whatever. Like, all of these people have skills that they're connected to, and that's what makes them valuable. And I think that's what, and I think those are all good and fine and obvious. Like, if someone is connected to music and that's what, like, sparks their joy and that's what makes them feel really passionate about life, I think that's just as valid. And probably that's how lots of people, like, they find soccer, they find painting, or they find like devoting their life to service or whatever, like the psychologist that he was supposed to be at the beginning. Like,
Right, yeah.
I think that those are all good, but I think that if none of those things mean anything to you, that doesn't mean that your life is meaningless.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, no, and I
like
don't
walking matters, and
right.
smelling matters, and watching TV can matter. Like, all of those
Yeah.
things, if they add up to a life that you feel positive and passionate about, then it doesn't matter if you don't have your thing.
Right. No, yeah, and because yeah, obviously that is like the sentiment of the movie is like your value as a person and the value of life is not in your achievements, it's not in your skills, it's not in what you do, it's just in being alive and being you and experiencing the world because that fucking rules and it does.
Yeah.
But
Which is inherently anti-capitalism, which is great.
yeah, and like it is the problem is I have with the movie is not a thematic intellectual like about what it's saying. It's more just like, but if you can't like feel emotion, like them going into the room to find their passion for that one thing that they do that they want to do and getting a spark makes total sense to me. But if you're like, no, actually they're just looking at stuff even though they can't really feel yet, but if they look at the right thing, then they'll become excited about being alive because they weren't before. It's like,
Jackson,
I don't think that it's that they couldn't feel.
yeah,
I
they
think
have
that is
feelings and emotions. They're talking about like physically they can't like feel
right.
tactily. That's what they're
Yeah.
meaning. They
But
can't taste or smell.
that's sort of mushy too, because the way they talk about how 22 experiences the world is more than just sensory. It's emotional also in the way that she experiences
like,
life in a way that she doesn't when she's in the before whatever.
but the way that she experienced like before life was meeting souls that had already experienced Earth, trying to communicate to her, like, you have to be like, we'll find
Amazing.
something that you're passionate about. You have to like
Right.
music. You have to like sports. You have to like being Mother Teresa. You have to like being the president.
Right.
Like, and then immediately after, like, not being interested in those things, being told that she was bad and that she was wrong
Right.
and that she wasn't worth it. So like her like connection to Earth was, I won't like this and I'm bad. I won't be good at this and I'm bad. Like, so what's the point if I'm bad at all of the things that they're presenting to me, which are just skills, because that's how human beings unfortunately present worth, is like through actions or through
Right.
whatever. Like, that's
Commodity.
on us. That's on humans. Like, that's not on like what the point of this movie is. That like
I wish you guys
life is bigger than those things.
I wish you guys would just let me say something that's kind of bullshit because like clearly like I get all that. Like obviously all that stuff's good. I'm just saying practically.
I would say my one CinemaSins, and this might be literally straight out of the CinemaSins video. I
Right.
haven't watched it yet.
There isn't one.
Is they keep getting food and going into taxis without paying for them
right.
in New York. Like, they
Yeah.
just walk into a taxi cab and get out of a taxi cab, and the taxi cab driver is like, hey, why aren't you fucking paying me money, bitch? Like,
Right.
it's just... Then that's absolutely a CinemaSins thing,
Right, no,
because who
yeah,
the
for
fuck
sure.
cares, but...
Yeah, because, like, look, all I'm saying is that movies are math problems, and if it doesn't add up, it's a bad movie, is all I'm
Yeah.
saying. And
If
I'm
it
just
doesn't have
saying,
A, B, and C, then it's a big pile of dookie.
right, it's a huge pile of dookie, and I hate dookie. I'm famous for not liking
Hey,
dookie.
I'm
everybody
anti-dookie,
dookies.
and you can put me down
Do you-
as that.
Hey, I have a question.
What's
Do you
up?
think that out of like the billions and trillions of souls that have existed, there was one that wasn't passionate about anything but Dookie?
Probably.
It's a real possibility. But they would never know. They would never get their spark because they couldn't
You don't
dookie
know.
until they
You
were
don't
a
know
person.
how hard those mentors were trying.
Well, but see,
There's
here's the
probably
thing.
a sanitation engineer.
But that's part of what I like about the movie, though, is like there's that moment where they're like, check out these kids, and just like, I'm an introverted whatever, and this one's just like, I'm a excuse me. And there's the one kid who's just like, I'm a sociopath with homicidal tendencies, and they're like, haha, that's equally valid. Like,
Yeah.
get on out there.
That's Someone else's problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, cool, you are still a person. Get on out there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, like I don't know. I just think it's kind of interesting that like,
Well, it's cool because let's be real. This movie, if you think about it, it comes with some weird pro-life assumptions that you kind of just have to deal with and get out of the way. But I do like that in that little short moment that they do kind of be like, nobody is born evil. Get out there. It's like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I like that.
well, I don't even think it's necessarily not born evil. It's just like people have certain things about them inherently, and sometimes that makes them more toxic to other people, but it doesn't change the fact that they're a person. They get to live a life, and they get to, you know, eat pizza and walk. Yeah, exactly.
At the very least, you can walk and breathe. Get on out there.
Yeah.
I watched an interview from like the SBSK channel that like an actual like diagnosed sociopath did,
Right.
and it's really interesting, and like it's hard to like invalidate someone based off of like their physical, like mental inability to connect with people,
Right.
and like that life is just as valid. It's really good. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it before.
Oh shoot, there's something I wanted to say, but I forgot what it was.
You mean to tell me that the American audience demonizes mental health? You can tell them what?
Oh,
crazy.
Just that, like, as far as the whole like pro-life thing, because like on a certain level, like, you know, some people like literally spiritually believe that. Not to say that I necessarily don't. I don't know. I'm not gonna take too hard a stance about anything, but like that you have a soul out there in the ether that already exists, and that it is supplanted into your physical body at a certain particular point. You know, that you always have been there, I guess. And I don't think this movie is trying to say that that literally is true. It's more just like a thought experiment about like,
absolutely
how people are, you know.
Like the majority of Pixar films, I do think it's kind of like we're just gonna act out a philosophical question and we're gonna see what comes of it. What if you met all your dead ancestors? What if we talked about parenting and maybe religion when we use the metaphor of a child with a toy? What about that? Like, you know? Like, yeah, I don't think this movie is specifically literally pro-life, but it's just with the it's just kind of baked in there with the whole thought experiment, you know?
And what's weird about it, like when we were watching it with Mom, that was like all Mom could think about. She kept saying over and over again, like, oh, Republicans are gonna love this movie. Because for some reason she just couldn't get past the like pro-life interpretation of it. I don't know why. But it's just so funny that I haven't really seen that around anywhere. Like, I haven't heard anybody talking about that element of it, which is, I guess, good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't think that was the intention at all.
Yeah, I didn't really, like, take in this movie, like, you better not abort any babies because they've programmed those souls fully before they ever even enter Earth. Which also we don't see, like, when does this soul enter this body?
Exactly, yeah. No, yeah, they're very, it seems like they're very clear about, like, oh, I don't know. Like, they just.
Look at my watch, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Like, that's totally, like, besides the point.
Yeah.
In that, like, life is precious. And,
yeah, exactly.
Like, it doesn't, it's not a culmination of your achievements. I just think that's great. I just think it's so good.
Totally good. Okay, is that it? Are we done?
Wait, I have something to say.
Go ahead.
This is really important. The part where Abraham Lincoln is talking to 22 and she's like, how do you feel about being on the penny? And he says, oh, you know, it's an honor to be like immortalized like that to the American people. And she says, well, Andrew Jackson's on the $20 bill. And he freaks out. I just love that. I think that's so good. That's just
fucking fuck Andrew Jackson, man. Fuck it.
Andrew Jackson is a terrible person. He doesn't belong on our money.
When did our modern banknotes get designed? When did that begin?
Like when did we put Abraham Lincoln on the penny?
I don't know.
That's a good question.
When was American money designed?
Just ask when they put Abraham Lincoln on the penny.
Hold on. I'm trying to get This says April
Listen.
2nd, 1792. That doesn't seem quite right.
That's exactly when they put Abraham Lincoln on the penny. Don't you ever dare.
The
Did
history.
they immediately put George Washington on the dollar? I feel like that'd be weird if he was like still alive.
Right.
Do you think that there will be like The Crown, like there will be an episode where George Washington's pissed he looks too old on the dollar?
Okay, apparently this is a complicated question that there's not a simple answer to, so I'll come back to you another time when I'm not streaming.
When they put Abraham Lincoln on the penny, we don't fucking know.
I'm sure there's a coin person out there that knows.
Right.
Hey,
but it just like it's
people.
not an easily
Coin
Googleable.
community.
Okay, anyway.
It's just funny. That's funny. And
That's
also,
it, yeah.
you know, it's implied that Andrew Jackson is in hell, so because he's not
Which
there.
is great, which is great news.
Do they I don't think they even confirm any
Listen,
kind of
that's
hell
my-
or... Okay, yeah, sure.
I think that Andrew Jackson's in hell.
Him and Ronald
I don't
Reagan are
believe in
just
hell.
partying up a storm.
But oh shoot, there was one last thing I wanted to say before we quit. I forgot what it was. You guys keep doing this to me, and I hate you for it. I'm so bitter.
Sorry.
And we're not friends in real life. This is all a facade.
It's true. It's just
Really
a
his
funny
sister.
joke.
I'm just somebody that he knows.
Oh, I get.
Now
Just
you
I
just
feel
said-
like I have a complicated relationship with those cutaway Family Guy jokes they do at the beginning of this movie, because it's like they're kind of funny, but it just feels. I don't know. Maybe just Family Guy leaves a bad taste in the mouth. Like, you know what I mean?
Family Guy.
Say-
Oh, like when he's like, they're really bad. Not you. He's really bad. What are you talking about?
No, I mean like where it's like, oh, I've been raised by a whole bunch of other people, and you just like cut to 22 talking to Mother Teresa and Sigmund Freud or whatever. Just like that, like the cutaway style of joke always. I don't know what it is. I was not 100% sold on just the language of it. Yeah, not sold.
Hey, heyo.
It feels like a
I
very
don't know.
specific break from like the visual language of the movie up till then and moving forward. And it's like,
Look, we
does
don't
that
have
make
a
it
lot
more
of
funny?
jokes. We gotta get some jokes
Right.
in there.
It's like, does that make it more funny that it's different, or does it just make it lazy filmmaking? I don't know. Medium worked on me, and I'm not sure what to think about it.
I didn't have a problem with it.
I didn't either. Like it was definitely like different in order to make a joke, and I was fine with it because there were only 3 jokes, so it was fine.
Right. Okay, so hey, do you guys want to hear a 1-star review of Soul, of Disney Pixar Soul?
Kinda, I don't.
Don't actually, but let's hear it.
This is,
I'm
and
ready to rip it to shreds.
I want to preface this because I feel like I have to every once in a while with these. I did a little bit of scoping. I scoped out this person's account, and I can confirm that this is not somebody trying to make a bit. This is at least
This is
This
a
is
genuine
an
it
opinion.
seems to me this is a genuine
review.
opinion. Yeah. This
Oh,
person
dear.
says, terrible movie. Why is nobody addressing how much it ripped off Persona 5? The music is so similar to Persona 5 that it's impossible Pixar didn't steal from them. There are even souls and a cat just like Persona 5. Pixar should just admit that they stole the music from Persona 5.
I hope
Exactly
that
like
they-
Persona 5.
I hope they reach their targeted audience. Like,
Anyway,
can you imagine in this week of crazy turmoil, craziness, that like
They're
tomorrow
like breaking news.
the headline is like, Pixar admits they ripped off Persona 5. They're like, they got us.
Timeline.
do a press conference.
We
and you
didn't
see
make it that far into the year.
Pete
This
Docter,
isn't who we are as Americans. We shouldn't have ripped up Persona 5.
Pete Docter giving
Sorry.
a YouTube apology about ripping off Persona 5. He cries at the end.
I think Persona 5 invented jazz, actually.
And I learned a
That
lot from
is
this
true.
experience, and I hope you can forgive me.
I'm so sorry.
Anyway, my name is Jackson McMurray.
My name's Adeline McMurray.
And my name is Kezia Rhodes. And if you'd like to follow us on any social
Oh,
medias,
fuck.
please feel free. On Twitter, you can find us at @NoNerdsPod. You can find Jackson at JepperPack. You can find Adeline at Holla Backhorse. And you can find me at Real Justin Bieber. Thank you. And also like, comment, subscribe. Tell us, do you think that Soul is a perfect film? How do you feel about the lighting? Do you like pizza and walking?
maybe sometimes at the same time.
Yeah,
We
I
should
do
all
as much as I can.
We should all go out and get a pizza right now in solidarity with everybody who's alive.
Yeah, because every single person
Gluten-free.
who's alive is eating pizza.
Yeah. According to
true.
the movie Soul, that's true, yeah.
Yeah,
Pizza
that's
and-
the biggest takeaway is that
Pizza
everybody
and
on the entire
walking
planet
and
is eating pizza.
Looking at the
Or
sky.
bagels. They do eat bagels too. They don't talk about it as
We're all
much.
when you look up in the sky, we're all looking at the same moon and eating the same pizza.
By the way, that moment where he's playing the song and he's looking at the little trinkets that 22 laid out, and they like do that thing where they like cut out to New York City and the planet and then the fucking galaxy, feels so hack when you describe it, but that hits so good in this movie.
Yeah, no, see, when you describe it, you're like, oh, whatever. But when you watch it, you cry.
You're like, oh man, that rules. That rules. Hits good. Anyway, okay, so now my name's Jackson McMurray.
My name was Adeline McMurray.
And my name is Kezia 22 Rhodes.
Oh, nice. And this is No Nerds Allowed. Thank you and good night.
Good night.
Or good morning. I don't know when you listen to this podcast.
Good
Afternoon show,
afternoon.
right?
Midnight.
Good afternoon, good morning,
Good
and go
evening
fuck
and
yourself.
Oh, that's not what he says.
Are you sure? I haven't watched the Truman
I
Show
haven't
in a
seen the
little bit.
movie
I'm
for a
pretty sure
while,
that's what he
so-
says.
We'll watch that. It'll be a double feature: Shark Boy, and Lava Girl.
Shark Tale and Lava Boy.
Shark Tale and Lava Boy.
Listen, Shark Tale is bad. It's a bad movie.
What's the movie where the surfer gets her leg bit off by a shark?
Shark Tale.
It's her.
But it's like an inspirational
one.
true story
It's
about
her-
how one
this
girl
isn't-
overcame the odds.
It's her arm, and it's Soul Surfer,
Soul
and
Surfer.
it's on Netflix because I've rewatched the part where she gets her arm bitten off a bunch this year.
Oh, okay, why?
Why, Keisha?
I don't know. I just have. Okay.
Is it good?
No, it's terrible.
Okay.
It's like very much. It's like they didn't tell anyone, but it was like that Christian found flicks.
Right.
Not found flick. Like
Whatever that company
whatever.
is. Yeah.
That company that does Christian stuff. It's like those people, and it's bad because they're like, God saved you, Bethany, and you're still good at surfing. And they
You gotta
literally
surf for
say-
Jesus.
but they like never say that explicitly. It's like not it's not ham-fisted, but it's
It's one of those
Right.
Jesus films where they can't talk about Christianity at all, so you're kind of like, why are we here?
It's like they never say God, but it definitely feels like God's not dead. Like it's that same
Right, right.
energy, you know? But
We
it
should
is
start doing-
fun.
We should start doing double features on this podcast.
Ooh.
I think we should start reviewing terrible Christian
We
movies.
could do like Soul
Ugh.
and Soul Surfer, and maybe next week we could do Wonder Woman 1984 and
Wonder, the one with the
and
boy
Wonder with Jacob Tremblay.
Can I tell you? May I tell you a story
You may.
that happened to me? So I was too old for when Wonder came out. Like, it was definitely like a young teen, like a tween book.
Right.
But my sister read it, and she also read Freak the Mighty around the same time. And Freak the Mighty is like a story about a boy who has like disabilities and befriends one person and dies at the end.
Okay.
And Wonder is about a boy with disabilities who gets mistreated and doesn't have a lot of friends, but at the end he has a bunch of friends and wins an award.
Hell yeah.
So I didn't know anything about them, but one
They're
time
the two options that you have if you were a disabled child.
they were like both in my brain, like in a little primordial-ish soup. You know, I didn't differentiate between the two.
Right.
And one time my sister was watching one of the movies with her friend, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this movie about a boy who has disabilities, but at the end he wins an award and has a bunch of friends. And I sat down and watched this movie, and the boy died at the end. And I was like, I literally turned to my sister and was like, when does he win his award? And she was like, that
Doesn't look like a trophy. Wow.
I was so upset.
Ugh.
I was like, cool. So what's the point is that sometimes you have a really terrible life and then you die
Yeah.
really young.
I was working at the movie theater when Wonder came out, and that movie did crazy numbers. It is wild how much money Wonder made.
What's the movie? I feel like I'm confusing Wonder with another movie. What's the movie where it's
Mighty
like a
Freak
little
Mighty.
kid goes to this married couple and he's got like plants on his legs and he's like maybe an alien?
It's like The Secret Life of Timothy Green.
Yeah, something like that. What's Wonder? I'm confusing those movies.
Wonder's the one where
there's like a boy who has Treacher Collins syndrome, which is like facial deformities and also like ear.
Is that the one with
like
Owen Wilson as the dad?
Yeah, it's Owen Wilson
as the
and
dad,
Julia Roberts.
as the mom.
And
That's
Jacob
right, 'cause
Tremblay
he's
is
always
the
wearing his
kid.
face
Tremblay.
helmet.
America's treasure, Jacob Tremblay.
I love
And
that
I
kid.
think someone famous is his teacher. Like it's like David Diggs or something like that.
Remember when Jacob Tremblay got like disemboweled on screen in Dr. Sleep? That ruled.
You're the only person who liked that scene, Jackson.
I want
Why do you hate Jacob Tremblay?
Jacob Tremblay rules. Jacob Tremblay's my favorite movie star.
I really do like. Oh, Mandy Patinkin's in Wonder also. Wow, dang. That's why it did so well, because they had like 3 tiers of
stars.
ages.
Yeah.
That like people like.
Wonder made $132 million domestic.
Oh,
That's pretty good.
It's a good tale. I like it.
It was probably also like, was it advertised as a kids movie?
I think it's a kids movie.
Like a heartwarming family film. Yeah.
Yeah, were they pulling in the kids' money crowd maybe?
And it's also like this is a book that a bunch of people read and really liked.
Yeah,
Right, it was a big book.
It was a big book, but it's not long. It's not a long book.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I haven't read it. I mean, it's like a regular chapter.
So wait,
book.
Kezia, now you've confused me. Does the kid die in Wonder, or does he get an award?
In Wonder, he wins an award.
Yeah.
In
Okay,
Freak
cool.
the Mighty, he dies.
Cool.
So there you
know
go.
what sucks is movies about fucking teenagers with terminal illnesses.
Yeah, why are
That
there
is-
so
that
many
is your
of them?
They're so bad. I hate them.
They have to get every terminal illness.
But
Every-
Jackson, they can only love each other through the glass.
Every terminal illness movie feels like the Christmas Shoes song to me.
Yeah, that's really
It's
fair. That's
true.
really, really fair.
What about Bubble Boy? Does that count? Because he doesn't actually have a terminal illness.
Wait, do you mean the one?
Spoiler.
Do you mean
The
the
one with
one
Jake
with?
Gyllenhaal.
Oh, then I don't know what you're talking about then.
Dude, that
I don't know
movie
that
is
one.
wacky. It's the one where he's literally allergic to everything, so he can't go outside, and he's
Oh,
like,
right.
"Screw this," and he goes around in a bubble.
Okay, well the question is, does he die at the end?
Spoiler alert for Bubble Boy. No, he doesn't actually have any allergies.
Oh,
So he just
there's a
can
twist.
go outside.
Okay, it's like The Village.
Yeah, it's like The Village, but
That's
not
a weird
the
way to
same
say
at all.
Hot Fuzz.
But yeah, because I had to watch Life in a Year for my full stream ahead videos. I watched Life in a Year and I watched Clouds. Both
What's
of which.
the one with the
dude.
girl from Blackish in it? What was that one?
Oh, do you mean Everything, Everything?
That's the one
Yeah.
where she gets deported.
Really?
Yes.
God damn it.
Like, wait, maybe that's a different one. There's one where like the girl is about to straight up get deported, and she's like, "No, my whole life is here because I was a baby when I was brought here."
Right.
And they're like, "Just sorry, you're still getting deported." And then she finds a guy on the streets of New York, and he's like, "I can make you fall in love with me in 24 hours." And she's like, "I don't believe in love, but also I'm getting deported." And then they fall in
that's
love. And he's
right.
like, "Oh man, she got deported."
That is not how they advertised that movie. They advertised that movie as like just like a I don't believe in love anymore. I bet I can make you fall in love with me. They do not bring up the fact
Yeah.
that she's under threat of getting deported in
Yeah,
the trailers.
because he's like, "Do you want to get coffee?" And she's like, "I don't have a day to spend on you." And he's like, "I'll make you fall in love with me in a day." And he does. And she's like, "Well, crap, I'm getting deported."
But then they can just get green card married. Is that what happens?
No, she gets deported.
Why? Wait.
You know what I think about?
But then she comes back later on a green card or something. It's so stupid.
She marries somebody else, somebody she didn't fall in love with in a day.
The movie Life in a Year is the one with Jaden Smith where Cara Delevingne has cervical cancer or something. And So, like, the point of the movie is like, oh, I'm gonna give you a whole life in a year, and they go through her like a checklist. It's like, get your driver's license, graduate from college, get married, like all the important life things that they like go through in some goofy way, and it's like silly and fun because she's gonna die and he loves her very much. But then
It's silly.
like when they're getting so this movie like transitions from being like sort of beboppy and fun to like being a real downer in the second half because she's dying from cancer, and like but like the movie's pretty good about like when she's like dying and like in bed and throwing up constantly. They're like, it's pretty intense, it's upsetting, and it's not cool and fun at all. But then like
That's the same as like the John Green one.
right. But then at the end, like in the
Green
final
from
act of the
Royalties.
movie, where she's like on death's door and they decide they're gonna get married, and like Jaden Smith is like sitting there in his tux, and they wheel Cara Delevingne out. She's so sickly and horrible in her wedding dress, and she stands up, and she's wearing like the sexiest, like sluttiest see-through wedding dress I've ever seen. And it's the weirdest cognitive dissonance I've ever experienced in a movie, where it's like supermodel Cara Delevingne in like a see-through lingerie wedding dress, but also she's dying of cancer and has huge bags
Watched her
under her
thrown
eyes.
up like 4 times.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's the craziest thing.
How many dead teens does John Green have?
Just one, right?
I guess
Just the
two.
one?
No. Well, someone dies in Looking for Alaska.
But it's not like a terminal illness movie.
No.
It's not
And
like
also, I feel like it's different with John Green because, like, he worked as a chaplain in a children's hospital and, like, befriended, like, kids with cancer and wanted to, like, tell an honest depiction of their story.
Right.
Like, I think that it's not, like... Also, that's kind of, like, where that popularity sprouted from.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think he's probably the one who did it first.
Walk
there have
to
been
Remember.
movies like that. Yeah, it's an old trope.
Yeah, well,
but
like,
also A Walk to Remember is like a story that Nicholas Sparks wrote in honor of his sister, who like that's literally her story.
Right.
So I don't know. I like those. I like some of them.
When we started talking about terminally ill teens, was it Wonder? Was it Wonder that did it?
He's not terminally ill though. Treacher Collins syndrome isn't a terminal illness.
Yeah.
He just has a facial deformity.
Yeah. He has a facial deformity, so he could either die or win an award, and he's gonna compare himself to a monster the entire movie, and you're gonna be like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's so upsetting. But, you know, it was, like, the intention the author had behind it was, like, her son, like, had a really poor interaction with someone, like, another boy who had Treacher Collins syndrome, and she was like, I don't want that to happen anymore, so... Which also feels like white savior complex, but with, like, able-bodied...
No, her son was a bully? I'm confused.
You know... It's baby steps. Like, I'd rather that exist and be in the world and like kids learn to be more tolerant and loving of like people who look different than them.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
It not, but it's not perfectly executed.
Instead of having my son who bullied a kid with a disability, I'm just gonna write a book about it.
Yeah.
And then make $1 million off of a movie based on it, and not have an actual kid with that disease in the movie.
Yeah.
It's cool stuff. Cool.
Listen, yeah. That seems like ableism seems like the like final frontier of like where Hollywood is willing to go.
Yeah. Like,
but that's on Sia. That's not on us.
Fucking Sia's fucking movie. God, we can't.
Are we ready to go? Are we done? Are we sleepy yet?
I think so.
I've had Mexican food waiting for me, and I'm so hungry.
I also have Mexican food waiting for me.
Why you guys always order food in the middle of the stream? It's not.
Yeah, it's because it's a Friday evening, so my parents ordered dinner, and we stream at 5, so my dinner always gets cold.
I refuse to feel bad for doing this.
It's fucking dinner time. I would eat a chimichanga on stream. Don't test me.
Clock for us. 4:30 is not a real time to eat dinner.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Next week we're doing Wonder Woman 1984. I'll say we're gonna do it with
The best
Cosmonaut
movie.
Meg, which is exciting, and new guests, new blood. Yeah. Anything else to say before I click the end stream button?
Have a great
Happy
day.
Games.
Yeah, thank you guys for showing up. There's so many, every week we're doing this the last few weeks, we're seeing like more and more new people, and it rules, and we're very excited about it. I have been so excited to like get on and do this podcast the last few weeks, because I know that I'm gonna get to see a whole bunch of new people who care enough to fucking listen to me talk about a movie for babies. It's not true. I don't like it when people do that, where they just like talk about any movie that is ostensibly for a family audience. Like, it's a kid's movie, who cares? I don't like when people do that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
I agree.
Say when people should on the thing that they do when people like it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Yeah.
I can't believe that all you million people support me being a fucking dumbass and playing stupid fucking video games.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing, guy?
I don't like that. And I know that's exactly what I just did, but I retracted it immediately because I heard it coming out of my mouth, and I was like, I don't like it. Anyway.
Like, I don't like the way it fits. That's I think you're allowed to do that.
Yeah,
I think that's
thank
allowed.
you. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week if you choose to. Bye.
You dare.
Bye.
Cool.
Did it. Bow.